Meeting to order. This is the last of the infrastructure meetings for this triennium. Ms. Marlene McDonald will open the meeting with a karakia. Thank you, Marlene.
Me ino tātou. Kia tātou katoa, te ata whai o tomato ariki o ihi karaiti ko te aroha te atoa me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tapu ake amane.
Kia ora, Marlene. Now does the health and safety. Toilets are back through the entries, both doors and onto the right. Fire evacuation procedures leaving the building via the stairs and assemble on the footpath in front of the Night and Day on the corner of Princess Street and the Octagon, or on the footpath on Moray Place by the DPAG car park. It's that way. Earthquake procedures remain in the building. It is safer. Move away from windows and any equipment and furniture which may topple. Take shelter under solid furniture such as tables and hold on. If you do require assistance in the event of evacuation, please advise the Governor's Support Officer, and in all cases follow instructions given by fire wardens, civil defence, emergency officers and emergency services. And that brings me then to public forum. We first have Mr. Mark Brethren, who wishes to speak via Zoom to support the naming of the 3 public roads and 3 private ways in the Wakari application. Mr. Bretherton, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to present to the Infrastructure Services Committee this morning. My name is Mark Bretherton. I'm a director of JKS Paddock Limited. We are the developers of a 10-hectare parcel of land in Wakari Road, known as Flagstaff. We're currently building stage 1 up there at the moment, which is 37 residential sections and some substantial reserves to vest with the council. We're expecting practical completion on that stage 1 in September this year, and we're looking to lodge our stage 2 application for a further 70 odd residential sections with the council this week. We're a family company. We're really proud to be building this development in this area. We've got long links to the suburb and the surrounding suburbs. We all grew up locally. We live locally, many of us still, and really proud to be doing something meaningful for the area and for the city. We're investing about $7 million this year, over the last 2 years rather, in the project. And we expect to be investing substantial sums over the next 2 or 3 years in subsequent stages as well. As far as I'm aware, this is about the largest greenfield development, residential development in the city, but in the inner city for several decades, and it's very much a legacy project for our family. Our family roots to the city go back as far as 1862. Mary Nayland, who was my great-great-great-grandmother, arrived as an assisted passenger at the age of 17 with her sister and with her cousin, 3 teenage girls travelling to the other side of the world. 1862 and 1867, 5 years later, the remainder of her family joined her, including her parents and her 6 siblings. The family left Liscannor in County Clare in Ireland. Richard Nayland, who was a master stonemason, was an early fundraiser, designer and constructor of many of the stone walls that you see on the lower slopes of Flagstaff, even to this very day, and there are in fact some on our site which we propose to restore as part of our development. The family owns several properties in and around Wakari and the hill slopes of the city. My great-grandmother, Honora, was an early student at Wakari School and was in fact the dux of Wakari School in 1896. On the other side of the family, Daniel Bretherton, my great-grandfather, he was an orchardist at Lowburn. He was a World War I veteran, and he moved to Dunedin in the early 1940s when his 2 sons, one of whom was my grandfather Basil Bretherton, were serving overseas as part of World War II. My granddad Basil, he was a decorated RAF pilot. He flew in the D-Day operations, and he was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for his activities overseas during World War II. Coming back from the war in the 1940s, he established the shops on the corner of Tyree and Helensburgh Road, the shops that are still there to this day. That corner was known as Bretherton's Corner for many years, through until when Grandad retired and sold the shops in the 1970s. Our family's lived for 150 years in these suburbs. Flagstaff has always loomed large in our lives and our family stories over several generations. The road names that we're proposing to you today are very much a tribute to our family and our ancestors, who have made a significant contribution to the local area and to the city over the last 150 or so years. I would also note that the names that we're proposing to you have been canvassed. We consulted with Sean Brosnahan, the curator at Toitu, and there was actually a letter of support included in our application for the proposed names from Sean, which we really appreciated. Our project Flagstaff is very much a part of that story. We're grateful for the opportunity to acknowledge and to celebrate our ancestors and their contribution and the continued connection to the area. So I'd very much like to commend to you the names that we're proposing as part of our application for your consideration today. Thank you.
I commend you on your timing, Mr. President. Any questions? Councillor Lofiso.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Chair. Tēnā koe, Mr. Bretherton. I'm just curious as to any. I really value the sharing of your history. That's really fantastic. And I'm just wondering if you, in the course of your preparation, have you had any conversations with mana whenua as to the significance of Flagstaff? I don't know the original name, but to them, to mana whenua.
We've not had any conversations specifically. We've done a little bit of research on the names of local significance. We understand that the original Māori name, or one of the original names that Flagstaff was known by, was Whakare, which means a place with a view or similar. Wakari Road, I think, is an anglicisation of that. Correctly or incorrectly, I don't know. But we're located on Wakari Road, so we have a fairly strong connection to that original Māori name, which is quite special to us.
Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for a really interesting presentation. Great question. I presume no problem whatsoever with recommendations in the paper.
Sorry, is that a question for me?
It is, yep.
Yes. No, none at all. The only thing that I'd say is that Flagstaff Drive is our much preferred name. In discussions with the staff, we did put forward an alternative, which also has a historical connection. When there was a concern that there may be some confusion, given names with similar, given roads rather with similar names elsewhere in the city. But I think that has been cleared by FENS and the emergency services, so that issue has gone away. So I'd just like to commend Flagstaff Drive as very much our preferred name for the spine road through the development.
Thank you.
Any more questions? No more questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Bretherton. You can follow on the YouTube link that was sent to you if you want to follow the debate.
Appreciate that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. And now we have Mr. Lyndon Wegery from the Dunedin Citizens Association, which has addressed the committee regarding the special consultative process for Smooth Hill. Welcome, Lyndon. I think you know the way it works here.
I'd just like to acknowledge Tony Cummings on my left and Malcolm Dixon on my right, two members of our executive committee. And you all have a copy of the speech notes, so welcome to follow. Chairman Jim O'Malley, thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of DACA about the special consultative process that took place over the proposed Class 1 landfill at Smooth Hill. Despite ratepayers and citizens not having access to all information that should have been released by staff, You recall that 31 submitters still opposed to commit $92.4 million to the proposal. As you know, the redacted part of the briefing papers dated 25 November 2024, presented to you on 28 January 25, were only unredacted after the submission deadline and officially released to councillors for the LT deliberations commencing Monday 26 May. Thus denying, and we believe contrary to the spirit and intent of the Local Government Act, submitters the opportunity to review, reflect and comment on all the options made available, and in particular option 12. This submission was also pointed out to you by Sarah Ramsey on behalf of the South Coast Neighbourhood Society. We are saddened that the lessons learned over the Aurora debacle have not been learned and implemented in the interests of councillors making a duly informed consent. Furthermore, the mayoral contention is that Smooth Hill, and I quote, will be half the cost over a 20-year period compared with sending to waste to Southland. But there was at the time no financial information available to ratepayers to even support that view. When the unredacted papers were released, what did we learn? While council is now committed to a waste minimisation, reduction and diversion strategy, reducing by 50% by 2030, there is still the need to dispose of residue municipal waste away from Green Island. The Morrison Lowe report identified 3 options: build a new Class 1 landfill at Smooth Hill along with a partner. That was their preferred option, as you recall. Number 2, build at Smooth Hill by DCC alone. C, export residue waste to nearest Class 1 landfill in southern region at AB Line, Winton. DCC have been given a consent to extend the life of Green Island provided Smooth Hill is built. In other words, the perceived bias towards Smooth Hill is strongly linked to extending the life of Green Island by up to 35 years. To be viable, Smooth Hill needs to receive annually a minimum of 30,000 tonnes per annum. But it is obvious from the unredacted information that staff are nervous about the reliability of this waste stream, given the emphasis on recycling and the stiff competition from at least 2 commercial operators that broadening the catchment area is suggested to compensate for any projected shortfall. This submission is curious given that one of the reasons against exporting is local Maori concern, but would they accept the import of other councils just to keep Smooth Hill viable? And just to comment on this cultural concern, how come local iwi in 5 other districts have no problem in exporting their waste to Cape Valley and North Canterbury? Enter the third option, which is exporting residue municipal waste to AB Line, Winton. We now know Morrison Lowe never actually talked or consulted with that company, notwithstanding that it had now been revealed that AB Line already have a contract with DCC to take some commercial waste. Also, there is no record anyone from DCC actually took up their offer to visit the site. In the executive summary for your deliberations last week, it was stated an RFI dated May 2022 was put to AB Line requesting, amongst other things, comprehensive pricing details. Although this exchange led to a formal contract dated November 2022 being drawn up between DCC and AB Line that included pricing and mechanism for increases, this information, now nearly 3 years old, was used by Morrison Lowe to make price comparison assumptions between option A and option C. Yet the General Manager of AB Line, Steve Smith, clearly states in his submission of May 2025 that based on their financial modelling, there is a clear advantage in exporting our residential waste to them to the tune of $13 million. There is no mention in the executive summary that any updated discussions on financial comparisons were ever held with AB Line, and particularly in the light of the contentions in their submission. It seems that assumptions about the gate price, etc., were made based on a 3-year-old existing contract which would differ from any long-term contract proposed in the future, should option C be further evaluated on what DACA contends should be on a level playing field basis. Therefore, we urge this committee to urgently review the processes that facilitated Council's decision last week and check whether in terms of Section 83 of the Act 2002, and I quote, an analysis of the reasonable practical options was in fact faithfully carried out. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Any questions? I'm just going to ask a question of staff, actually. Mr. McLean, can you just clarify the Green Island extension to 35 years?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. It technically goes for 35 years. Capacity-wise, it wouldn't take 35 years, but the 35 years at Green Island includes the transition period to closure as well. So, and I've just had a message from staff. At current waste volumes, it would be around about a maximum of 7 years life left at Green Island. So whilst the document says 35, we're talking around about a maximum of 7 years at current waste volumes.
Just clarify, there's no more questions. Oh, Councillor Vandervis.
The 7 years, is that assuming that you're not going to fill over the pipeline? That is apparently one of the issues with putting extra into Green Island.
I can't answer that. Mr. Henderson will be in attendance for the Waste and Environmental Services Activity Report. You might want to ask them.
Ms McDonald.
Good morning. Thanks for your input. Just wondering which iwi and who did you contact regarding the comment about the cultural concern? How come local iwi and districts have no problem with their waste going to Kate Valley?
I did not contact because I obviously. Sorry, madam. I did not contact anybody up there, madam, because obviously I don't live in the area. I'm just assuming that because it is the practice to export from 5 councils waste to this central Class 1 landfill, that the local iwi were quite happy. That is a view. That practice has some cultural concerns. As I understand it, from local iwi within our own district. But I'm just making the comment that local iwi in the North Canterbury area do not appear to have had any cultural concerns.
It's different from what I know. Thank you.
You may, I mean, as for the committee through the chair, would you like to elaborate? What is there?
No. Because it's only 4 questions, not a debate. Yep. Any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Swearing.
Thanks, Jim.
Move on to apologies. As at the opening of this meeting, we have an apology from Ms. Donna Matahari Atariki. I move that the committee accepts the apology. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gilbert. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Confirmation agenda. I move that the committee confirms the agenda without additional or alteration. Seconded, Councillor Weatherall. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Cool. Declarations of interest. Members are reminded of the need to stand aside from decision making when a conflict arises between their roles as elected representative and any private or other external interest they may have. Are there any amendments to the register? No, therefore I move that the committee notes the elected and independent members register and confirms the proposed management plan for elected and independent members' interests. Seconded, Councillor Weatherall. Those in favour? Carried. 6. Confirmation of minutes. Anybody wish to talk about those minutes? Otherwise I will move. No, all questions. I'll move then that the committee confirms the public part of the minutes of the Infrastructure Services Committee meeting held on the 19th of March 2025 as a correct record. Seconded, Councillor Weatherall. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Part 7. Actions from resolutions of Infrastructure Services Committee meetings on page 22. Do I have any questions? No. Then I move that the committee notes the open actions from resolutions of Infrastructure Services Committee meetings. Seconded, Councillor Weatherall. Anybody wish to speak? Okay, then I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 8, Infrastructure Services Committee Forward Work Programme on page 25. Any questions? Mr. McLean, you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to note, you'll recall an item for consideration by the Chair some time ago was to include project Gantt charts. So we've done that with on this agenda with property and transport. We did, as a staff team, discuss where they would best sit on the agenda and whether they be appended to the forward work program. But we decided we'd append them to the activity report to ensure that the staff were in the room at the time. So you'll find the property one on page 45 of the agenda and transport on page 103 of today's agenda. So happy to receive feedback at any point on those and make sure they work for you. Thank you.
No, thank you for that. And I think actually putting them with the activity reports makes a lot more sense because staff are there. Mr. Mayor, you have a question?
Yes, I have a question about Albany Street. It says here, the procurement process for this project will start in July 25 with construction commencing in November 25. But I've been contacted by business owners on that street and there's been, they were under the expectation there was going to be some additional consultation with them about the parking and the setup for the road. And they're certainly not of the opinion that they've had that, and neither have they had the subsequent consultation required with their various tenants. So there's property owners that contacted me about Albany Street. And so it seems to me that there should be no no continuation of this procurement process until the Parking Committee has reviewed and approved the revised plan for Albany Street. I believe that Albany Street's also been extended from the Captain Cook Corner, so Great King Street through to George Street. So that's bringing in even more property owners as far as that is concerned. So until the Parking Committee has reviewed and approved the revised plan, after consultation with the property owners, there should be no procurement on the process, no ongoing work on that project until such time as the Parking Committee has reviewed and approved the revised plan. And the revised plan, of course, will be subject to the consultation with the business and property owners. There has been quite a significant... Mr.
Mayor, is that a question?
It is a question. So, well, it is a question. How does that assessment of the situation sit with you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's not my understanding. You'll recall there was some concern raised by business owners originally when we went to proceed forward with this. So that was paused, and during that time, there's been a lot of consultation with the business owners. They've had a lot of input into the final design, and my understanding is that they were happy with that. So that's my discussion with staff has been fairly recently, and their interactions with the business owners were positive. So, but again, there is a transport activity report, and you might want to ask staff about that, but yeah,
therein lies my concern, because I have had feedback from senior staff that the business owners were happy, yet they two of them have contacted me in recent times, and as recently as yesterday, to say that they're not happy with the situation. The situation is not resolved. So there are two of the significant property owners along there, and similarly it's not been resolved for the tenants who are the business owners versus the property owners. So they want to have everyone in agreement rather than council moving forward with a project that will cause trouble for them.
As chair of that committee, I would say that all the members of the community, including the student associations and those who live in the area, as well as the business owners and the businesses themselves, were extensively consulted. Could you name the people who have been calling you? Because it's hard to deal with people who are just referred to as business owners.
Yes, I can. Jason LaHood and Greg Patterson.
Thank you. I'm not sure where we can go from here, to be honest. Councillor Garrett.
Yeah. Sorry.
Question for Mr.
Sorry, Councillor Garrett. You're next, please.
Question for Mr. McLean. Would it be fairly normal in a consultation process that you wouldn't get 100% of agreement. You'd always have someone that perhaps doesn't agree with the majority or whatever. Would that be fairly normal in our experience?
Yes, absolutely. And I took from what Mr Mayor said was that the business owners were given an opportunity, and a couple of them may not be happy with the outcome, but they were consulted, certainly.
Councillor Vandervis.
I'm familiar with the original extensive plan for Albany Street, but I haven't been able to really clearly identify how the final design has landed. And I'm wondering if it's possible to, I'm sure we've already had it, but given that there's been a few iterations, is it possible for us to get sent the detail of the final design and cost proposed for all the changes in Albany Street?
I think we can circulate that. Of course, the cost is not part of the consultative process. The design would be, but yes. It would be quite useful to see any differences that have occurred since the committee approved the plan at that time. Thank you. Councillor Lucas.
I'm not sure who this question is directed to. Is when the parking subcommittee minutes that where we did Albany Street, we didn't approve the Albany Street part of that, and we haven't actually, because we were going to go back and revisit it, and we haven't gone back yet to revisit Albany Street in terms of parking services. And you remember that? I just asked Mandy, who also sits on that we actually haven't. So that might be why Councillor Vandervis in particular and the Mayor are wondering what the design is, because we never actually brought that part back to council or wherever those minutes go to. We haven't actually approved that part. But I don't know who to ask that question to.
Well, I was just wondering, can we check we've closed the loop? And if we haven't, can we have it potentially put on a council meeting, potentially to close up? Any more questions? Councillor Walker.
Maybe a question for you, Mr Chair, of the chair of this committee. Is it is it correct of me thinking that is not the job of the governance team to assess every operational decision that has previously been through a robust consultation period? That's not our job. To relitigate every operational decision. The process has been robust, it's been consulted on.
Yeah, I hear your point, Councillor Walker. Yeah. Mr Mayor.
Yeah, I think we've just heard that the parking committee has not approved the plan, or has not reached a decision on the plan. So
actually, no. I will interrupt. The parking committee did come to its decision, but it has to come back to council ratification, and that step is missing. But the parking committee did agree. And it's got to come back to council for resolution. We may very well have not closed that part of the loop properly. Okay. Any more questions? Therefore, I move that the committee notes the Infrastructure Services Committee Forward Work Programme. Do we have any speakers? First I need a seconder. Councillor Willow, Mr Speakers. Councillor Vandervis.
I've been unhappy with the Albany Street proposal for many years now. And one of the main reasons I've been happy with it is that I feel that it has been pushed through this council and now pushed through with changes yet to be ratified.
Mr Councillor, I just want to clarify, when you say pushed through, are you implying that it has not followed special consultative process?
What I'm saying is that I am not aware of the final layout and the final design of this particular project, and that not having that information, I'm concerned that it is seems to have been put well ahead in this program of work, and for me not to have seen the final design and not to have had an opportunity to comment on it, and to find that it is now, with all haste, going to contract and to be done. I find that unusual, and it makes me uncomfortable.
Thank you. Any more speakers? Mr. Mayor.
Yes. I don't. There's a range of issues with Albany Street, and other parties have suggested to me, well, students have suggested to me that they, have some elements of contention with the plan as well, but neither are they particularly sure of what the final plan is. Now, my point is that the key stakeholders along this, significant road in the university area, and the range of businesses and student facilities that cater to the pedestrians and the student community that use that road regularly, and in many cases want to be able to park outside or relatively close to facilities that they're visiting, have not seen or ratified the plan. And as recently as yesterday, I was contacted, and they have not seen a building owner, and they have not seen the plan. Neither has they discussed that with the tenants, so who are the business owners along that road. So it does appear as though the consultation for this project has not been carried through to its appropriate conclusion. And so, if the conclusion is that people had their chance earlier and may have said what they wanted to say, and that has been disregarded, then that is not an appropriate conclusion, in my opinion, when you've got a significant number of businesses catering for a significant number of students in that area, but also the convenience of a great deal of students in that area that want their views taken into account. And so it does suggest that there might be some other agenda other than optimisation of that street for the use of the people.
Can you clarify what you mean by other agenda, then, Mr. Mayor? I'm going to call you up on a point of order in there, in terms of disrespect.
Well, no, there's nothing disrespectful.
What's the other agenda?
Well, if the key stakeholders...
This is actually not your speech now, you're just answering my...
Well, we're jumping out of process, but that's fine. So if the key stakeholders on the project are not happy and don't feel that they've gone through their
No. I asked you what the other agenda was. You said there's another agenda.
Well, it suggests that there might be some other reason.
Yeah, I did. I called and put...
I don't...
Oh, I'm waiting from that. Okay,
I don't need to come up
you're right. I've called a point of order, therefore Councillor Weatherall will have to rule on it. I'm calling that it's disrespect because the Mayor is referring to another agenda. And that implies that the process has not been followed clearly and properly and legally. Councillor Weatherall, can you report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will uphold your point of order. You haven't been able to clarify the agenda aspect of your comments, so if you could please just retract that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take back the word agenda. Another imperative, another raison d'etre for the project that does not include or does not take into due consideration the key stakeholders of the area. And so, and which may well be the case. But so that is my point. And I don't think that it is appropriate to proceed with the project until, because my discussions suggest that they, feel that there is a way forward, that they're not looking to block the project per se, but have accommodations within the project that enables their businesses, and there's quite a range of them, to be able to function appropriately. So they, if there's a greater imperative other than the functionality of that street for the main stakeholders in the street, then that should be put on the table rather than when you've got them wanting to be included and supposedly being told that they would be included, their views taken into account, and yet we're now hearing that they've been listened to and the decision has been made, and we have not seen the decision at this committee or any other committee. We haven't seen what that final plan is, so I take issue with that. I think that we should be able to see what the final plan is and have, and so should the key stakeholders be able to see what the final plan is before construction commences. Thank you.
Any more speakers? Councillor Walker, followed by Councillor Gary.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen some extraordinary things around this table in my time. This one is getting up there to taking the biscuit. Listen, consultation is consultation is consultation. It doesn't become good consultation because it adheres to every ideology we believe in, and it doesn't become bad consultation because it disagrees with our ideology. And suggestions of from another councillor that we're going with all haste and comments like another agenda are a slight on our hard-working professional staff who set up a process on our instruction and they do it in good faith. There's many things that have gone to consultation in this city that I believe in. The consultations come back against my beliefs. Do you know what I do? I accept the consultation on its merits and I accept the decisions that staff make based on that consultation feedback. And the suggestions from some councillors really are a kick in the guts to some of our staff, and I'm really, really disappointed by them. Decisions, as Councillor Gary mentioned in her questions, by their very nature, we're going to have to look at George Street, create controversy, and any consultation process often results in people not taking part of it. And when the designs come out, I do it as well. If it happened on my street, I'd suddenly take interest in it. But it doesn't change the fact that this went through a due process and we should respect that process. And it is interesting that both the Mayor and the other councillor never bring up these concerns when it's a consultation that fits their agenda. Thank you.
Councillor Gary.
Point of order.
He's not speaking anymore, but...
Yeah, a point of order, because it's not
well, okay.
great.
Which one?
Well, when it doesn't fit their agenda.
Which
what
one?
Agenda do
Which
I have?
point of order?
Point of order is disrespect. I mean, because a previously upheld point of order suggested that if I use the word agenda, is it appropriate? I modified that. And I think that it's absolutely equally inappropriate that the councillor should use that term.
I won't uphold it because the councillor you were referring to something else, which was a staff and a more collective activity. The councillor is pointing about how he perceives people vote and talk. That is the nature of this place, and you can't call a point of order just because you don't like what you hear. Councillor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. An extraordinary exchange. I wanted to make the point that we have been assured by staff, and this would be our expectation anyway, but we have been reassured by our staff that a consultation process took place. Our staff bring their expertise to these matters. We are not traffic engineers. We have experts in the field and they are well versed in how to conduct a consultation. To then cherry pick, which is how I see it, because there are some folk who don't agree with where it's landed, it's cutting our staff off at the knees, and I don't accept that that is an acceptable way for governors to behave. We should be backing our staff. We've asked them to do a job, they've done the job, they bring their expertise to the job, and we have been reassured this morning that that is what has happened, and that is the end of it, as far as I'm concerned.
Councillor Barker.
I guess I'll just refresh people's memories. There's online, there is the consultation that was undertaken in 2022, and it talks about how the public consultation was undertaken. There was a councillor briefing in May 2022, targeted engagement with the disability community. There was a website and online survey, media release, social media posts, letter mail out, and also door knocking that DCC informed all directly affected businesses of the project and their opportunity to provide feedback. This was completed by talking to them face to face or leaving a letter with their staff or at their door when no one was present, and there was 113 submissions and 109 on the online survey, and there's pages and 21 pages online for anybody that cares to look at all of the consultation, the pedestrian safety improvement feedback, cycleway comments, one-way comments, parking changes comments. So it's in there and it's been through the process. I too would actually like to see the plan, and I think that when you say that there should be a closing of a loop, I agree with that. But I do believe there's been ample opportunity for that consultation.
Councillor Van you've already spoken. Councillor Houlihan.
Thank you.
Well, Councillor Van question time is over. We've moved it. We're into speeches, and you've already spoken. Councillor Houlihan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll just say that I've had concerns about Albany Street for a while, but it sounded to me, and I don't mean to sound rude, but that there's a lot of waffle and not a lot of point to the issues being raised. There's no problem, I think, with a councillor or in this case possibly a mayor raising concerns about an issue. However, obviously there has clearly been consultation, quite extensive consultation. My concerns around it, and they may be alleviated once we see the full program of everything that's happening, is are they going to pedestrianise that area, and how many car parks are going, and how well will the traffic be able to flow through that street once this work is done or once it is being done, because it's a very, very busy street, and I've said this numerous times about this project. I come through there often daily, and I'm not the only one. There's thousands of people who come through there. It's a very, very busy street, and I've heard students say the same, that they're concerned about having car parks and having access. It's not all about car parks, but we do need to have provide some sort of place for transportation in that area, because huge numbers of people from our city go to that area. They go to the university. So it is a very important part of our city, and what we do with this street, because it is a very main channel, impacts on our whole city. So I think we need to be very, very careful with that. It's clear there's been a lot of consultation, but let's hope we get things right. So I would word with caution. Please don't pedestrianise the street or take away all the car parks, because I don't think that's what's needed. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? I will use my right of reply. I think it would be quite useful before people started guessing what was going to happen on Albany Street to actually look at what has been proposed. And it is public document, and they're not pedestrianising Albany Street, and we're not taking away all the car parks.
Point of order.
Yes.
The point is that we haven't closed the loop. We haven't seen the final design.
What's the point of order?
And the point of order is 25.2 misrepresentation.
To who? Me?
Yes. We haven't seen the final design.
We'll take an adjournment.
You just said we did.
5 minutes. Councillor Walker seconded. All those in favour? Aye.
Chair. Having discussed the issue with staff, it is quite clear that the loop has not been closed as yet. And the course of action going forward is that there is going to be further consultation with the stakeholders of the project prior to coming back to council, which is going to come back to us. So I will uphold the point of order, and if Mr. Chair could just rephrase your statement. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been so long I can't remember what I was saying, so I will just withdraw whatever it was. In terms of this particular activity, Albany Street, the Parking Committee, Hearings Committee returned its decision 18 months ago, and it would have been closed, the loop would have been closed then, but it was held up because of Mr. Patterson's request. And the fact the slowing down of this whole project has been to consult with the named business owners that we're speaking to. In terms of the rest of the key stakeholders, it is true that people who own businesses on Albany Street are key stakeholders, so are the people who live in the area. It was a substantially and a robust special consultative process that was done on Albany Street. And if it had not been held up, it would have actually been constructed now. So it has not been pushed through, it has actually been held up. It's dramatically held up. And this has, to me, all the hallmarks of what we almost did on George Street, where we almost held up George Street for almost the same concerns. And the fact of the matter is, if we do not respect the special consultative process, then we are undermining the whole process of how this council works. I want to acknowledge Councillors Mayhem and Lucas for keeping quiet today, as they are also observing another component of this, which is to make sure this doesn't end up in front of a judicial review or other such things. Because too much commentary in an environment like this, with people who are coming forward with basically what they think, facts, as opposed to facts. And
Point of order.
Councillor Vandervis, you've already said it's pushed through. It isn't. What you think and what has happened are different.
Your statement about me presenting what I think is facts as opposed to facts is 25.2 disrespect. Thank you.
I didn't mention it. Good. Good. Away we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't uphold the point of order. I think we just need to take stock of the process. It's quite clear that we are involved in the process, and we'll just move on. Thank you.
Finish just with this. This is the Infrastructure Services Forward Work Program. And when we get to items here, and I really mean, because we've got activity reports coming through which will have key catchphrase words in them. It is not an opportunity to relitigate everything the council has done up to date. It is to take the item and take the item as it is read and comment on the item. At the moment, the only thing relevant is that the loop hasn't been closed, and that has been caught by the committee, and we requested that it come back to staff. Any other speeches to this point are not related to the item. And I am going forward, this happened at the last infrastructure committee meeting, we ended up extending for over an hour on people who were taking tangential arguments from words they picked up in items. So I am going to chair this relatively strictly going through the rest of this meeting. I'm going to look for how related to the item the question and the speeches are, and if there are deviations that are substantially away from the item, I will call the speaker up. With that, that was my right of reply, so there are no more speakers. I put it. All those in favour? Aye. All those against?
No. Recorded, please.
Do you wish yours recorded,
yes,
Mr. Mayor?
Recorded. Thank you.
It's good that you do not approve the forward work program. So, item 9, property services and parking operations activity report for the period ending 31st of March 2025, found on report pages 33 through 44. Ms. Nelson and Mr. West. Thank you very much. Do you want to speak or just take it as read? Questions? Councillor Vandervis.
In the overview, and I recognise it as just an overview, on page 33, it talks about the property services group includes activities and services related to, I've underlined, land and lease management. Now, my understanding is that we have, for a long time, had an awful lot of land and perhaps leases as well that hasn't been looked at. It's only very recently that I've been able to get a comprehensive list of the land that the DCC owns, and the absence of this list has been a concern for me. My question is, regarding all the land that we now have a comprehensive list of, do you have this list, and do you have oversight of it?
Yes, I do have the list. In terms of having oversight of it, I wouldn't say that it all sits in property. A lot of it sits in other departments outside of my oversight.
So what you're saying is that there are a lot of DCC properties, in fact, that don't fall under your property overview. And these would be other departments like the water department, like whatever. My next question then is, given that there are an awful lot of other properties that the DCC owns, do you see any value in future in having a general oversight so that maintenance of these properties, for instance, could be looked at as a whole rather than in the silos of the different departments that own them?
Sorry, that's quite a large question. Firstly, we do have some coordinated approaches. So if we're looking to procure things that relate to property, we'll always look to check with our colleagues that hold and manage other property to see where we can have synergies or where we can optimise our expenditure. So there is a lot of cross-council conversations going on about the different pieces of land. At the moment, property services wouldn't have the resources to bring all of the land and all of the property that we own into our one department. And there's also the other stream of it is that the specialised areas that are operating on those properties often find it more effective and efficient to manage those properties themselves within the department. Moana Pool being one of those properties, where the property's managed in Parks and Recreation, and they call on property services as and when we can provide value and insight for them. For example, the Moana Pool upgrade project is managed within my department where I've got specialist property knowledge, but the property itself is a swimming pool, and my team really doesn't know anything about swimming pools. So we work together and we trade off, but we are as a department, as a whole of council, working to find some of those efficiencies, really I guess under our asset management improvement stream of work.
Mr. Ward actually wants
that all sounds very reasonable, and thank you for the complete answer.
Mr. Ward wants to.
My next question through the chair is that do you or are you aware that there are a large number of bits and pieces of property left over from roading changes and boundary moves and all sorts of other odds and sods actually that are not of any particular interest to perhaps the water department or the roading department or whatever, that have tended to just sit on the DCC books for a long time? And would these odds and sods of bits of property that are not looked at, not developed, not leased, whatever, would those bits of property be something that your department could look into either disposing of or optimising in some way, or is there some other DCC business unit that could deal with what seem to be quite a large number of bits and pieces?
I can happily say as actually an adjunct to the Housing Action Plan that Property Services are doing a land holdings review, which is exactly that. It's challenging for us because of the internal IT systems and the fact that we don't have all our land in one system in one place, all nicely categorised. But we are going through the process of considering what land holdings we have and then really looking at what rises to the top, what's actually easy and sensible to consider disposing of, where there's residential land versus reserve land, where it's over a certain size, and we've already identified 2 properties that have come up on that list, and we're having discussions with Jill Brown and the housing team about those,
and hopefully we'll be able to report back to council in due course about the progress of that piece of work.
Thank you very much.
I would just add that Anna and her team has done a huge amount of work in that space, and you're right, Councillor, there's multiple numbers of pieces of land, so it is a big and complex piece of work. I just add the work that you've done with Jill has been great, looking at and working with NGOs potentially as well around housing solutions to some of those pieces of land, but that's just one little aspect of it.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, curiosity question about item 35. The Station North car park versus the St Andrew Street car park. Is the Station North the gravel car park on this western side of the railway, and the St Andrew Street the paved car park further away?
Exactly.
Is there a difference in pricing between the two, or is it primary?
There isn't a difference in pricing at the moment, but it's something that's on my team's radar to see how we can maximise revenue and available parking.
And as a matter of curiosity, what is the difference in pricing between the two?
I think they're the same price. Yeah. I don't know off the top of my head, sorry, what the dollar figure is.
Obviously, well, it's still only 80%, the stations, it's closer, but 80%. Anyway, thank you, that's great.
Councillor Lucas.
Two questions. My second question first while we're there on parking. I'm intrigued by Ethel Benjamin Place at only 16% because I have reason to go in that area relatively, frequently, and it's always full. So, it would seem to me a bit of a red flag is actually, are the meters even working there?
The meters are definitely working the majority of the time. We get alerts if they fail and we send the technicians out to fix them. It'll either be a case of the times of the day that you go, it's full, but the overall hours that it's available to be occupied is low, or the other thing we have is an enforcement aspect that comes into it where people physically aren't paying to park, although they're there.
I would suggest that. I know a number of people who take the gamble and they figure that 9 days out of 10 they park there and don't get ticketed, and they're happy to take the gamble because it still works out cheap for them. That would be my suggestion.
So I was just talking with the parking team this morning, and parking ops, along with parking enforcement and transport parking policy side, now have regular meetings set up where they will look at optimising that turnover of the parking and do just that. Go, okay, we've got low occupancy, but it's actually really full because we see it every day. Do we need to enforce in that area slightly differently?
And I think that, you're talking here about the parking dashboard, obviously then that highlights, so then you can target the enforcement. You can see you nodding it. Now my other question, completely different subject, which is South Dunedin Library. And I'm great to have the Gantt charts, thank you very much. And if I'm reading it rightly, it's now not expected to be finished until October, is that? Or is it even later than that? Or is that just the final remedy in February?
I don't have an opening date for you at the moment. We're not quite close enough to say that for sure, but we are running into September at the moment, but we're just trying to see if we can speed that program up and gain any ground between now and then.
I'm just conscious that there really hasn't been any communication with the community, and there is some expectation that it was going to be open imminently. So just, managing people's expectations.
Sure, I'll talk with Cam and the library folk and see what we can do about that.
You can't wait till after the election, right? Sorry. Councillor Wiley.
Thank you. Civic Centre upgrade. Just that project seems to have gone on, and I note in the Gantt chart that it has been going on for quite a while. Level 2 is progressing well. Is it in budget? Is it when is that supposed to come together? Is it a modest refresh, or is it a what sort of design and expenditure is it as such?
So the overall project is within the budget of 23.4 million. It is a long project. It's evolved over a long period of time. What started out as a simple weatherproofing project really has turned into something more substantial than that, as you're aware of. Level 2 is progressing well. It's within the budget that we set for Level 2.
Any more questions? That the committee notes the Property Services and Parking Operations Activity Report for the period ending 31st of March 2025. Second to Councillor Weatherall. Anybody wish to speak? Councillor Walker.
I'll just speak briefly to it because I can speak to it because I couldn't think of how to put this into a question around the St Andrew Street car parks, which are, there's two down there. There's the station car park and there's the north one, which I pass every day, ironically. The costs are the $150 an hour and it's $8 all day, which is still in my mind way too little if we want to think about encouraging mode shift. And the paper is right that the St Andrew Street car park itself is huge. It's about, I mean, I've timed it by when I've walked it. It's about 90 seconds more to walk into the Octagon than using the one that's by the railway station. So it's hardly an impediment in that sense. It's way underused. The likelihood, I imagine, is once the hospital's built, it will probably become a way more popular car park. But anecdotally, so this is not real, and I am somebody who does champion basing our decisions on data and evidence. But as I've ridden past there over the past year or so, the occupancy is creeping up. So I don't know what staff are doing to promote it. Obviously something, but it is slowly creeping up. And I think I was quite surprised the other day when I cycled in and noticed it was over 50% full, because that's rare. So that just a reminder to the public out there, $8 all day parking, about 5 minutes from the centre of your city, always available. Obviously, if it's piddling down with rain, that's another question, but bring a brolly. But I think we can think ourselves pretty lucky as a world-class city having free, well, pretty much, minimal all-day parking so close and available to the centre of our city. And I think if I was to say this in any other city in the world, they'd look at us jealously.
Any other speakers? With that, then I put it. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item 10, Waste and Environmental Solutions Activity Report for the period ending 30th of April 2025 on pages 47 through 57. Mr. Henderson, starring solo. Do you have any comments, Mr. Henderson, or just take it as read?
Thank you, Chair. I would just make a comment. There's originally there was also two other update reports that were supposed to be coming to this meeting in regards to construction, demolition and community. Due to a mixture of staff availability and staff sickness, those have been postponed till the 30th for that meeting.
Very good.
Thank you. Happy to take questions.
Councillor Wiley.
Thank you. Page 53 of our papers, we have a data information around curbside recycling. And I actually found those numbers quite staggering. In actually what the trends were, obviously their information, I take it they're gleaned as the bins are picked up by the truck, or how is that data collected?
Thank you, Councillor. The table at the top is the curbside data that runs across there, and obviously the table at the bottom is it's actually processed through the recycling centre in Timaru.
Okay, so what I'm looking at is, for example, glass, and we look at the average weight, and I take it that's the average weight per blue bin. I'm sort of staggered by, I would have thought that December period, Christmas period, might have been, early summer may have been a bigger period than what, for example, March is. And actually I thought February might have been a lot higher with the students coming back. So just some of those sort of numbers as I went through it, I was sort of quite surprised in that sense. But I guess the numbers are the numbers, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, can't offer an explanation. The numbers are exactly that. That's what has been picked up at the curbside, yes.
how is this comparing to other locations around the country, or is that data, have we not compared that data?
No, not specifically. We haven't compared it. Obviously different areas collect. We're one of the few that actually do glass separated collection at curbside. Quite a few collect in bins. Some it's actually mixed in with the commingled recycling, like Christchurch. It's all in the yellow bin. So it's there's not a lot of comparative data that really means a lot for us.
For example, when I look at organics, that was one that really stood out. Again, I was surprised by that number based on what we sort of heard through the process we went through in the previous consultation of what recycling and introducing our curbside program was going to be. Was that a surprise, or was there any other surprises in that?
Thank you, yes. We've been really pleasantly surprised and encouraged by the uptake with the organics collection. The figures that we had used were based off, as estimates, were all based off Tauranga, which was the last similarly sized council that had introduced curbside collection. The interesting fact with Tauranga was it started off very strong and then started to die away up there. We started high, and it seems to have maintained with the collection rates. So we're really pleased and quite surprised with how well Dunedin residents have adopted that service.
Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report. I do love myself a colourful pie chart. Talking of which, page 54, just a general question of concern, and forgive me if the answer's embedded in the papers, but I couldn't find it. When somebody's been a fail or a no-no and the result is a bin removal, what then are their options, and what do they have to do hence to get the bin back, if they can get it at all?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, it's a 3-month stand-down period, but normally it's basically once the stand-down period is completed, we're more than happy to give them the bin back again. They just have to pay the delivery fee. We have considered introducing some form of I guess you could call it like a good behaviour bond or something like that, but we haven't gone that far. It's basically just a stand-down period for service removal, and then we can give the bin back again.
And I presume as part of that process there is a dialogue between us and them about best practice and what they need to do moving forward, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. So obviously the excuse me, sorry, Councillor. We give the education material on the previous inspections. There's always information left behind on acceptable and unacceptable material before we get to the removal process. And then when the bin goes back again, there's an education component to that with the a visit and the pamphlet, that full pamphlet that was rolled out with the bins about exactly what can and can't go into which bins, etc. So there is an education component.
Final question, is this specific to a particular demographic? And I'll be upfront, is it mainly students that we're finding, or the student area, that this is an issue?
I wouldn't want to single out a particular demographic. It is true that the high density living area down there in the student area does mean that it is the most problematic area. Yep.
Councillor Benson Pope, just want to follow that up. So there's a lot of students there. So percentage-wise, are they really showing up, or is it just mass? There's so many there.
I think it's just the mass, and because there's such high density housing. So obviously you've got you may have flats with up to 9 people living in there, etc. So well, obviously we also collect weekly in that area, so it skews the stats a little bit as well.
To Councillor to Tauranga, and losing and having the green waste not diverted, are we inspecting our red bins for green waste?
No, not particularly at this point in time, although obviously we can see what goes up to the tipping face at the landfill when it's deposited at landfill.
Because I put that probably what's happened to Tauranga is people have started putting organic waste back in their red bin, if otherwise they're storing it at home, right?
Yeah, my understanding was that and this is completely anecdotal from staff at Tauranga, was that, yeah, they did notice people were keen to start with, and then some people decided it was just too hard and they went back to just trying to use one bin. So, yeah, but as I say, so we're very pleased that Dunedin residents have been, have picked up the service so well and stuck with it.
And so what mechanism are we using to follow the red bins to make sure that they aren't getting used? Is it just what ends up at the tip face at the moment?
Yeah, what it is at the moment, thank you, Chair, we will be, in the very near future, we'll be doing a solid waste analysis protocol to actually see exactly how much waste and what's coming from the red bins at the landfill tipping face. So that's a process to go through to actually give us percentages and weights.
Excellent. Councillor Benson-Pope.
I'm sure everyone enjoys the success of the system and the usefulness of the app. I noticed the tracking function. When is that going to be introduced?
I cannot give you a date at this point. Thank you, Councillor. It is an ongoing discussion between ourselves and the contractor of when that functionality will be enabled.
Councillor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. It's true, is it not, that a focus of the Sophia Charter work is collaborating on waste minimisation and the educative process?
Yes, that's true, yes.
And as I recall, Ms Mackenzie outlined in detail as part of the Charter work a response around the students being involved in design of recycling hubs and so forth. So it's a wide-ranging work. And the other Mr Henderson, who's the senior staff member appointed to the Sophia Charter, he is he not on top of this along with yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. We at the moment, I guess as an example, we have an extra temporary staff member at Enviro at the moment that's dedicated to just doing the student area for checks, etc. as well. So it's putting a little, that extra resource in there to try and address that high density demographic.
Thank you.
Ms McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the putting of food into the red waste bin, has it been taken into consideration by Enviro Waste that it could be that people from the Muslim community who don't eat pork would not want to see that pork included in stuff that's going to make topsoil to grow more food?
Thank you. No, that hasn't been considered at all. Sorry.
And so is there a possibility of this being considered in the future regarding penalties that are looming for people that are not doing the right thing?
Sorry, I think I'm not sure I quite understand the question. So we don't, if people are putting food waste, any food waste at the moment is acceptable in our green bin.
No, I'm talking about putting the food waste, people that are putting food waste into the red bin because they don't want to contaminate through their cultural practice. They don't want to contaminate the food bin.
Okay, no, thank you. So, yeah, I mean, the red bin is a general waste bin, so really there isn't, apart from hazardous wastes of some form, there's no intention to bring in any enforcement for people putting food waste in there as such. It is a general waste bin, so we can't really enforce that apart from things like hazardous waste or dangerous waste, that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
Following up Ms McDonald's question then, so we don't have a policy on the red bin and organic waste?
So for argument's sake, for the likes of Smooth Hill, we have a policy where we are reducing the amount of organic waste that's going through in general waste down to a maximum of about 5% if we can. So we will be doing what we can to eliminate organic wastes from general waste, but we don't, at this point in time, we don't actually have a checking policy on the red bins.
Thanks. Might be something for the councillors to socialise among themselves at some point as to whether we want to establish one or not. I don't think we need to today, though. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, thank you, Chair. At the moment we're focused on basically increasing the quality and quantity of recyclable materials, so the general waste is not, at the moment, not a focus apart from hazardous waste.
So at the moment, if I'm getting it right, you're basically offering the opportunity for people to divert, and we're working first on how many people will actively engage in that process, and we're not going into the policing side of it yet. Right.
Correct, correct.
Cool. Any more questions? Oh, well, then I move that the committee notes the Waste and Environmental Solutions Activity Report for the period ending 30th of April 2025. Thank you, Mr Henderson. Seconded, Councillor Mayhem. Anybody wish to speak? Councillor Wiley.
Thank you. I'm going to just speak on the curbside aspects of this report, but yeah, I note the rest of it as well. But the key thing being is actually some interesting trends popped out to me. I just couldn't believe how busy October was. You can actually see that people would get out there and do quite a bit of gardening and things like that, and with the organic bins being quite strong, being picked up 110,000 times. But then obviously everybody comes back from holiday, and the bins got picked up 22,000 times at a weight of 14.4. So just things like that really do sort of perk my interest. The one that's really stood out for me was the glass, because obviously we have noted the issues around, especially the campus area and glass. I'm not sure what October meant, whether the students and exams, etc. But when you look at 36,000 bins being emptied and the average weight only being 3.2, and you come back to March this year and we get 33,000 bins being emptied and at an average weight of 12 kgs. But January 41,000 bins and the average weight of 6. So there's still quite a bit of activity taking place. I look at that as because I remember having a number of submitters coming through and talk to us over and over again about the curbside program and what it was going to mean for them and for the city. And I think as you go through and look at these numbers, and I'll be really interested to see if we can get comparison numbers from around the country, for me, I have seen this being successful. And yes, there are still people that are frustrated about having the 3 wheelie bins and the glass bin and everything else. But I think this was something that was really proactively and positively done, rolled out last year. And I was one that was sitting on the fence through that period. I have seen a cultural change in our own home and how it's used. And I think when I look around and talk to others, they have changed what they used to do. And so I do see there's a lot of positives here. And it is, again, I guess I love the data and this stuff, and to see that investment that saw people's rates go up so considerably last year because the introduction of curbside, I do see that having a beneficial impact on many, many households around the city.
Next, I just want to make sure I caught you. Councillor Vanderbilt.
It's good that we have a successful collection regime that seems to have been well adopted, but I've always been a wee bit concerned, and one of the reasons I've sometimes voted against these changes, apart from their cost of institution, is that the cost of collection, the cost of sorting, and the subsequent use of this material is something which we still hear very little about. My understanding, and I'm open to correction if this is not still the case, but my understanding is that collection of glass, for instance, has in the distant past simply been expensively ground down and used as road fill, which to me is really not a really good use. It doesn't, to me, justify the cost of collection separation if it just ends up being buried anyway. I understand that since those days, we have been able to send significant quantities of colour sorted glass, and there's been quite an expense in colour sorting it, to get made into new bottles. But that this all has to be transported at significant expense to Auckland to get done. And if you actually look at, I'm glad to see that Mr. Henderson is nodding, I've got that right. But if you look at the cost and the carbon footprint of sending this heavy material to Auckland to get made back into bottles, which might then end up being transported back here again, the cost of collection, the cost of transportation, the cost of making it into new bottles, all of these costs, to me, don't necessarily support the idea that we have a successful collection system. If we were able to reuse bottles here, wine bottles in particular, and there's a good supply of them in March at least in parts of Dunedin.
You're presuming.
I'm presuming. If we were able to actually have a bottle washing and reuse facility here, to me that would constitute successful collection, rather than the inordinate expense of taking something which wouldn't do any harm in a landfill or under roads, sending it all the way to Auckland to be reprocessed again. So my concern is that we look at the collection side of things, but we don't look closely enough, I believe, at subsequent use. And it's the same thing with green waste. Is there really a market for significant amounts of green waste being turned into fertiliser of some sort, as happens in other places? The focus on just doing the collection side of it and not actually having real subsequent use or market for a lot of this collection, to me, is a severe weakness in the system. It's not enough just to say, oh, we've done our bit and we've collected all this stuff and we've separated it. What happens to it then? Is it actually viable? Is there actually a carbon footprint justification for a lot of this activity? I doubt it.
Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you. I partly agree with Councillor Van der Vos around what he was talking about, actually, but for slightly different reasons. And like him, I agree staff should be applauded in creating a system that has largely been really successful and embraced by the community. But I disagree with the councillor around the cost, use and market. My concerns are more at that systemic level change that we need to create. And if you look at the figures on page 52, around, I think it's 9.8 thousand tonnes of general solid waste, 4 million tonnes of mixed recycling, 2.5 million tonnes of glass, and 30 million tonnes of food and solid waste. I think there has to be far more, and it's probably not for us to do, but it's a call out to all of us to put pressure on our elected officials and corporations at the national level to not be creating the waste in the first place. And there's other jurisdictions across the planet, particularly in Northern Europe, that have been far more proactive and punitive in terms of making sure that happens. You only have to look at Germany, Finland, who put far greater onus back onto manufacturers to not create waste at source. And if we could move down that road, I think it would be a much greater starting point. So my concern is that systemic system change we need to see at the start point would help get to my much lauded goal around this table, that should be for us to never want to need to have a landfill in the first place. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, I think the team and the decision to do this needs to be applauded, because we do see clearly from the figures on page 53 that the public of Dunedin are very interested in separating their waste and recycling and reducing the amount that they're sending to landfill and having the maximum amount recycled. Also, when we look at the pie charts on page 54 and see after inspections there's a considerable improvement in the behaviour and how people separate their waste, and it's an educative process. So people are interested in doing it in the first instance, and they're also interested in being educated and learning how to do it in an optimal fashion. So that's very encouraging. And now getting to the stage of having really good quality separated waste, we are in a much better position to do something about more locally with recycling it, and I hope that we can get to that position of having some local recycling of some of these materials. And glass in particular would be good if it would be financially viable instead of the freight required to send it to Auckland, for instance. But similarly with plastics and other commingled material. Thank you.
Any more speakers? I think I'll just use my right reply relatively quickly. Councillor Wiley's point about cultural change, I think that's the most important thing I've seen come out of the curbside collection, is that by offering people the choice, they take it. And what's interesting, if you compare us to Tauranga, is that I think the people of Dunedin are more inclined to want to do the right thing than any other city in the country, to be honest. So I think it's a factor of our own society as well. To the best of my knowledge, glass has not been ground for road-based, and I'm looking over at Mr. Henderson, certainly not within my memory. Yeah, so that doesn't happen at the Dunedin City Council. In terms of, we were the first engager of the coloured glass separation, and that's quite some time ago, and actually got good rates from OG at the time, or that's who the manufacturer is. The thing to remember is when that glass is melted, it's where are the new bottles being made. If the bottles are being made in New Zealand, Dunedin, then setting the glass up, melting it and bringing it back would be inefficient. But if they're being made in Auckland, which I suspect they are, then that is the place you would send the glass to be melted. And then it will come back in the form of a new bottle full of liquid of some sort, which will be a lot heavier than the bottle. So I'm not overly worried about the amount of carbon footprint of getting that glass up to Auckland for melting. I think it's probably the best place, although I agree with the Mayor, and it's certainly been, and I think Councillor Vandervis is touching on that point, we need to be establishing local activity if we can, and if it makes sense, then we should. Okay, with that, I put it. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 11, Three Waters Activity Report for the period ending 31st of May 2025, found on pages 60 to 68 with 3 attachments between pages 69 and 96. Mr. Ward and Mr. McKendry. Or Mr. Oliver. Welcome. Do you have any comment to make before questions?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to take questions.
Councillor Lucas.
On page 61, on point number 8, you're talking about doing design work to extend the pipeline networks, and I'm particularly talking about Bush Road and Mosgiel, because I know that the very large subdivision application has been filed for there for a while. So, and I know you knew that was coming. So does this overall going to increase the capacity? Because I know that is a barrier for a lot of using Kāinga Ora, their new housing that they are wanting. There's these capacity issues. So is this going to help all of Mosgiel or just the new subdivision?
Thank you, Councillor. That particular project is focused on connecting that new subdivision, that land that's been rezoned, into our existing network. It's not looking at addressing the wider challenges in Mosgiel, although as part of that development, the intent is that it makes those existing issues no worse.
Just to follow that up, you are putting, has the bigger pipe from Southern been put through to the Mosgiel Holden Reservoir?
Yeah, that we're just completing that pipeline, the Wingatui pipeline, bringing the water supply into Mosgiel.
And that should achieve now, because we were having water shortages notices in the height of the summer, will that alleviate to some extent?
So we've also got to upgrade the pump station that brings the water over the hill and through that pipeline, and so we're that's in progress at the moment, but we're expecting to complete it around October, and then the idea of that upgrade is that buys us time to handle growth for at least the next 10 years.
So that now gives us a capacity that used to have the Outram bores has now been coming through the reservoirs.
the
We used to draw from the Outram bores and then go straight into Mosgiel, and then we shut them down. And then we're using Southern and Mount Grand, and this new pipeline with the new pumping station effectively gives us the volumes that we used to get, ish.
Yes, there or thereabouts, yep.
Yeah.
For me, Mr. Chair, just take the opportunity to note also, though, that there is still high demand in that community, so we'll still need to address that with the community, work with the community in terms of water conservation measures. So that's a separate issue, but something worth noting.
Yeah, thanks. Mr. McKenzie looks desperate to get the microphone.
Yeah, sorry, just add in, so the work that Mr. Oliver mentioned is upgrading the capacity from Mount Grand through to Mosgiel. There is further work in the future to add an additional pipeline from Southern to Mosgiel, which would add further capacity and add resilience. So they're two separate things. One's increasing current capacity from Mount Grand, and the second, which will happen in a number of years, is to add another pipeline.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I got that wrong. Councillor Gilbert.
Thank you, and I think you've actually just answered my question, but just in case I got it wrong, point 7 on 61 talks about the renewals packages being completed in the coming months, and you just mentioned October. Is that the coming months? Because coming months can be 2 or 20 or more.
Specifically related to point 7, which the design work, that's kind of the next 2 to 3 months is my understanding for that work.
Councillor Fise.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Chair. Tēnā koutou, gentlemen. I'm just asking a question on the summary of considerations, Māori impact statement, and I'm not sure if the wording there actually indicates that mana whenua are involved somehow.
Yeah, what we're intending for the word in there is that all of the projects listed out, we are directly engaging and working with mana whenua on those projects specifically. So as an example, integrated system planning, there is representation via Aokaha.
There's the letters around local water well done on page 95, 96. Barker.
Thank you, Chair. Kia ora koutou. I was wanting to ask about on page 63 the South Dunedin flood South Dunedin flood alleviation, and it talks about the delivery approach for 3 short-term projects, which were included in the draft 9-year plan should they be approved. And are you waiting for the final stamp of approval on June the 30th? And then we've got a piece in the paper today asking for stormwater justice, and I guess that we would like people, I mean, you have replied to the paper, but to hear what the plan is and when it's going to be executed, including in that paragraph, those 4 paragraphs you talk about the Kaikoura Valley area, which is also brought up. I don't know if you've read the article this morning, but it would be helpful just to give an overview of that.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Barker. I'll start, and then maybe my colleagues may wish to jump in with some additional commentary. So firstly, I may have mentioned previously we have met with Mr. Dorey, sat down and spoken to him firsthand. Yes, whilst we're awaiting formal approval, we have started in terms of working through the short-term solutions that were proposed, were debated through council. We were anticipating they would be approved, so it's not a cold start for us, for sure. And we've endeavoured to describe to you the broader work that we're looking at. So we have South Dunedin Future, we have South Dunedin Flood Alleviation, but we also have the interaction with the surrounding catchments, and yes, we are working on all of those simultaneously.
I guess my question is, when does the actions start, shall we say? So we've got the 3 projects. When will people see, I guess, holes being dug and action starting?
Again, my colleagues may have more specific timings, but I would just a broad comment. All work of this nature you typically measure in years. in terms of making sure the design, you want to have the design as thorough and as rigorous as it possibly can be before you commence construction, because if you don't, that's when there'll be expensive variations and expensive delays. So whilst for the community wishing to see action and for elected members wishing to see action, I would just ask for your patience, please, while we get the design right.
I think broadly, if you looked at the numbers in the 9-year plan from memory, the sort of allocations for these lines in the first 2 years are largely covering design work to Dave's point, and then the dollars really ramp up in years 3 and 4, which is when you'd likely start to see holes being dug.
Mr. Mayor.
And do we have an order for the 3 projects? So do you know which, just because you've suggested in point 29 that 2 of them are, well, our first priority, so what are those 2, and do they have a particular order, and what is the third one? That'll be...
Sorry. Sorry, the first 2 are the projects which are simpler in that they don't involve mechanical works as such, are largely pipelines, so the Forbury Aqueduct and the work around Portobello Road Pump Station are the initial 2, and the kind of delivery mechanism for them is relatively straightforward within our existing renewals programme. The third project is the pump station in the Hillside Road area, which requires quite a lot more thought and work around kind of feasibility and conceptual design, consenting, acquisition of land and the like.
Councillor Wiley.
Thank you. First question is relating to paragraph 6 or point 6 of our report on page 60 about the water supply to the Otago Peninsula via the McAndrew Bay Reservoir. Can I just get a little bit more detail, and is that going to involve digging up the Portobello Road?
I think the simple answer to that is yes, that will be required at some point. To the extent to which and the location is essentially what we're working through.
And if that is done, and I know I'm sort of moving out of just this activity, but there would be wider engagement plus also future proofing of the peninsula with other services to be managed through that process?
Again, simple answer is yes, and they're the features that we would typically look to include, yes.
Okay, thank you. Going on to Tahuna wastewater, something that I sort of follow quite closely. And looking at paragraph or point 44 on page 66, talking about sludge incineration at Tahuna. I note also in our 3 water systems integrated system plan, which was really good, we talk about 670 tonnes being in, going through that plant every month, with 470 tonnes, or about 70% being incinerated, and 200 tonnes, which is, I work out to be 30%, being mixed with lime and then being sent to landfill. Are we? What's happening around the world? Because I've seen the incineration sort of grow, and I remember Brian Turner was positive about that sort of project when Tahuna wastewater was done. We seem to go around circles. Where is the technology? Where is the advancement in this, and is that going to come?
I'll start it, if I may, Councillor Wiley, and I'll again pass on to my colleagues. So through a fairly sophisticated procurement process, we've found a technology partner we want to develop solutions with. But doing this incrementally. So the first phase would be to round out the business case to determine the solution. The emerging candidate is for beneficial reuse of the processed sludge. Number of applications that can be used for, but we think one strong emerging candidate would be for construction materials such as low carbon concrete or road materials. That's one strong pathway that we're actively considering, but again, a very measured approach to locking in any expenditure on that once we're satisfied that that's a pathway to proceed. Would you like to add anything?
No, I think that kind of covers the Dunedin context relatively well. And in terms of around the world, what we've seen is the kind of move towards using sludge or biosolids as a resource. There's a lot of energy in it. There's a lot of nutrients in it, and the move globally has been how do we access some elements of those resources, and the work that we're doing recently is us seeking to find the best way to access those resources in Dunedin and in New Zealand. One of the challenges in New Zealand in particular has been a lot of countries have used sludge for land application to reuse the nutrients for it, but that's not always been simple from a consenting and community perspective in New Zealand.
So the goal is to minimise the 200 tonnes a month going to landfill?
Correct. Yeah, the goal is to use as much of the product we have as a useful product as we possibly can, or to find a better end use for it than we currently have.
Follow that up. I think often it's not what comes up in activity reports is emerging activities, and I wonder if a workshop on an emerging activity like this would be quite useful for the councils, because really this isn't a place to workshop it, but I do think it's a very relevant point. And to the item part 6 in the Otago Peninsula water security, is it fair to say that that piece of road was laid down pretty early in the development of the Peninsula Connection, and when it was laid down, the instability of the waterline was not in the council's vision at the time? Because I think people are going to say the obvious. You're digging it up straight away.
Yeah, to my knowledge, Mr. Chair, that is the case, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following on actually from Councillor Barker's question, because I had the same question, on page 60, number 4, can you just confirm that Kaikorai Valley work there that work once done will take pressure off that Easter Crescent, Forbury Road drainage area there, won't it? Is that correct? That's what I'm understanding, but I'm just wondering if that's the case. Like that flows through.
In weather events, wastewater from that area comes down a pipeline that runs through Surrey Street. So by reducing infiltration in those areas, it reduces the level of wet weather wastewater flowing through Surrey Street, and should reduce frequency of overflows.
So just to clarify, where it says pipeline renewals in Kaikorai Valley are underway, that work will directly help relieve pressure in Surrey Street. Is that correct?
That's correct. Quantifying how much is very challenging, but it's correct that it will reduce infiltration, which would reduce wastewater flows in a wet weather event, please, Surrey Street.
Following on from that, it's incorrect for people to say that we're not doing anything to help the infrastructure in Surrey Street, is it?
I don't. I think that's a rhetorical question, and I think we can leave it as a rhetorical question because I don't think the staff.
But what I'm saying is we're investing a lot in that area, aren't we?
Yeah.
Can I ask that? I mean, that's fair,
yeah,
isn't it? Fair. We are, aren't we?
Sorry, Dave, you're back to proceed.
I think I'd like to answer that more broadly. We're investing right across the region. There's in the aged, vulnerable metropolitan areas such as Kaikorai Valley, there's particular attention right now, and that is having the beneficial effects progressively over time that we are anticipating.
I think this would actually be another great workshop, probably after the election now because we're so close to it, and for all the heads in the room, but this would be one, I think, of great interest to the city and to the council.
But just to clarify, we are investing in the area specifically. There's been a problem area around Surrey Street. We are putting investment into there, aren't we? Just to clarify, that is correct, it's in the papers.
Yeah, so the work we are undertaking in Kaikorai Valley, as you have described, is having a benefit to adjacent areas such as Surrey Street, yes.
Councillor Vandervis.
On page 61, 12, paragraph 12, talks about the Green Island wastewater treatment plant getting, quote, renew the UV treatment process. Is that just getting new UV tubes for the existing, or is there an entirely new upgraded UV system going in there?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. It's the UV system. There's around about 25 years old, so it's end of life. So we're replacing the whole UV system. However, that does not include, so we're retaining the existing civil structures, so the building, the concrete channels will all remain, but we're changing the UV tubes, as well as all of the automation and control which relates to it. So one of the challenges we've had in recent years is the computer systems that control it are no longer supported and can't be replaced. So all of the electrical and mechanical parts will be replaced, but the structural parts will be retained.
So that's a significant upgrade. I noticed in the paragraph before that there's new inlet screens for Tahuna. Are the inlet screens prior to this new UV system up to scratch? Because if you've got particulate, obviously your UV's not going to work that well.
Yeah, we've assessed the Green Island screens over the last 4 or 5 years and done maintenance work to them, and we believe that they're of a suitable standard without requiring replacement.
Great, thank you for that. If we go to page 66, and I'm looking at paragraph 48, where it talks about planned maintenance work at the Musselburgh pump station. And I'm surprised to hear that there's 2 diesel generators required there. Is it the case that these generators are required because there's not sufficient 3-phase reticulated power available there?
So my understanding is that the power connection which DCC holds from the electricity supply is not sufficient. However, that may have historically been DCC's choice because of the price we pay for power connection is a function of the size of that power connection. So I believe we may have chosen historically to have a smaller electrical connection for dry weather flows and to use diesel generators in wet weather events.
Excuse me, Councillor Van der Wessel, may also add, it's also resilient in terms that it's an alternative power supply. If we were to lose the feed into the plant, then you would have the generators as backup, rather than having a separate independent power supply.
So the argument for having diesel generators rather than being able to rely on the electrical system is a sort of belt and braces type argument?
I'd say it's resilience and economics, but the generators provide standby in the event that electricity was down. However, electricity alone doesn't have sufficient power to run all of our pumps in wet weather.
Okay, thanks for making that clear regarding Musselburgh. What about the Portobello station? Does it also have diesel backup generators?
Yes, a Portobello Road pump station has an electrical capacity that is sufficient to run all of the pumps in wet weather and has a diesel generator as a backup.
So even if we were to have a complete power outage, which is possible when you've got a major storm, you're saying that the diesel generators in all our pumping stations, we've talked about Musselburgh and Portobello, but are all the rest of them able to still function as well? Then we could still get this stuff moving out.
Yes, but to varying capacities. So, for example, the Portobello Road pump station, the diesel generator, I don't believe would run all of the pumps in a wet weather event. So we're actually doing some work at the moment to review expanding that capacity.
Thank you very much, and thank you also for being across the different situations that you might come across with power supply.
Just following up, Councillor Van der Wessel, it's my experience with a factory in town that if you pay for the capacity that Aurora can deliver as your line charge, not the amount of electricity that you. So if you end up having with a strong connection box, you end up with a wickedly high delivery charge, even though you don't draw the electricity. Councillor Mayhem.
Thank you. Just a couple of short questions. Page 62, 19E, groundwater scoping for alternative water source. So groundwater, I assume, is like an artesian well or a bore underground, not like water just under the sea.
It's the councillor. It's the former. Yes. Yep.
And item G, it says global wet weather overflow exploration, and then further on page 64, item 31, it says there's 60 million for wet weather flow management in year 4 of the LTP. So is that the same as global wet weather, or is wet weather flow different?
So the wet weather flow it's referring to is the same, but they are two separate projects. So right now, when we have wastewater overflows from manholes and things, it's a unconsented activity, and so the global wet weather overflow consent, it's global in the sense of it's a consent that covers all of those types of overflows across the city.
And so that'll take place, further exploration in year 4 when the budget line is there?
We're hoping to do the global wet weather consent earlier, although it depends on the ORC's Land and Water Regional Plan, which is currently on hold. So we'll wait for that to come through, and then that'll inform how we do the global consent. Meanwhile, the 60 million of work, that will continue regardless. That's really about targeting those overflows and trying to reduce the amount and the frequency.
Thank you for clarity on that. One more question, Mr. Chair. On page 61, item 8, going back to Councillor Lucas raised this. This is about design work to extend the pipeline networks to Doctors Point. Waitati has a typo in there. It's an A, not an I, or TEE would be acceptable. I was interested to read that. I thought that the intended developments at Doctors Point were to supply their own water and sewerage reticulation at those sites.
So as part of the agreement for the rezoning of those sites, they had to, they would always intended to be connected to the existing water supply, but for their wastewater systems they had to install their own communal wastewater systems. Yeah, so these upgrades are really focused on the water supply in Waitati was already somewhat constrained, and so we've done some work back in 2023 to make some improvements to the amount of water that comes from town into the area, and now this is a further step just to, in that localised area where those developments are taking place, add some additional capacity so that we can deliver, still meet our level of service. Yeah.
On that, so in the summer months when there is water restrictors for the whole area, in the summer months I note that sometimes water does not reach all the way to Seacliff. So this additional capacity you're talking about, will it meet that growth and still supply the end of the line?
That's the intent. This particular project doesn't address the issues that Seacliff has been having, but the work completed in 2023 does help support that. So we have an improvement in terms of what we're supplying to Seacliff. Probably need to do a bit more work to look at a bit further out in the medium to long term and whether that's still sufficient or not.
But all of the water is coming, is it Mount Grand, all the way through to the north coast, almost to Karatane?
Yes, Councillor, that's correct. Yep.
Which is why you'll be looking for sources in the north in the future. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 councillors asking questions, and it's 5 to 12. So I just want to, I'll definitely break after this for lunch, but just everybody remember that. Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, but my question's been answered.
Excellently efficient. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, just looking at we're looking to reconcile what's on page 88 and 89 about the wastewater. Back with it's all part of the same thing, the wastewater network optimisation, and in particular looking at the flows down Kaikoura Valley and the channeling of all of those to the Green Island wastewater treatment plant. So quite relatively early in the piece. The Green Island wastewater treatment plant will be upgraded to take higher volumes and take the water from Mosgiel. I believe that is correct, yes. And so looking at the wastewater future situation that's in the diagram the diagrams on page 88 and 89, that's suggesting that, over the next 10 years, will all of the water from Kaikoura Valley be channelled out through Green Island by the end of that period? Because we're doing pipeline improvements at the moment, but they'll all make, smaller improvements. But at some stage, that Caversham Tunnel will have the pipeline removed and it will all go to Green Island, but sometime in the next 10 years. I mean, I know it's far too hard to predict when at this point.
Sorry. Yeah, that's one of the options that will be considered in the wastewater network optimisation study, which we've referred to the activity report, and that'd be considered alongside alternatives such as building a big pipeline, discharge into the environment, or building a big storage tank and using the existing pipelines. They're broadly the categories of options that we'd be looking at.
When do you think that'll be ready for presentation to like a workshop?
Yeah. The net result will be the way it will be no wastewater going through the tunnel.
Oh, that's not.
Is that right?
We're intending to establish the preferred option by the end of this calendar year, so we haven't yet established the preferred option, but the wastewater network optimisation study that we've referenced is the vehicle that will establish that for us.
So that'd be something you might better bring back to a new council early in the year, the following year. Cool, thank you. Councillor Gilbert.
Asked and answered.
Councillor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a different question, and I'll ask it of Transport as well. Under the Three Waters umbrella, do you have any idea of the cost to date, and I assume not all the work's been done yet, associated with the October 24 weather event? And it might be that you come back.
Yes. Sorry, Councillor Gary. Yes, we'll come back to you if we may, please. Yeah.
Subsequent question, if I may, is how much more work is there to be done in that area, or is all the work done?
It depends how you kind of choose to include what's a result of the weather event, but for example there's still some slips at Needpath Road which we're still working on collaboratively with the transport team, and we're still running on a temporary pipeline in Manapori Street area out to Port Chalmers, but that will be replaced by the Port Chalmers pipeline work which we've referenced in the activity report. So there's a whole combination of works that are ongoing, and quantifying exactly how much of that is related to the weather event can be slightly challenging.
I appreciate that. And I was going to ask a subsequent question on that. When would you expect that work to be done that's, widely part of this? Would you have any idea? It's got a very long tail is the point I'm sort of asking. It's quite a long tail, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a relatively long tail. I know we've been asked the question recently and we're trying to document that currently, so we could share that with you once we've done that.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, just a quick note, please. So it reminds me, and it will be included in the next activity report because it relates to this period. Last week there was the Civil Contractors New Zealand CCNZ Otago Awards, and the supreme winner was the St Leonard's temporary pipeline. So that was the supreme winner of the Otago Awards. So not for noting in this period, forgive me, but just had to mention it now.
Didn't cause the landslip to get the award, did you?
West Harbour wins again.
Still Houlihan.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that. That's very good. What does that mean for the people of St Leonard's?
It's an industry award, Councillor.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was that your question?
Efficient now, that's right.
This was for the immediate repair in the temporary pipeline.
Yes. Yeah. My question is around, and I could be opening a can of worms, so hopefully I'm not, but my understanding is our investment in the carbon zero work helps our capital program as well, as far as infrastructure work that we're able to, that some of that is combined in that package as well, and the budgets and investment all work alongside each other to help get a lot of things done because they have a benefit. You know, if we're more resilient in our infrastructure, it helps us combat and mitigate future situations that could be climate related. Is that fair to say?
Yes, Councillor, that's correct. We embed zero carbon thinking into all of our work, and that manifests itself most visibly in our capital programme. But that in terms of the energy we use in our solutions, embedded in the construction activity or in the subsequent operational use.
And it has an immediate benefit, doesn't it, when the work is done?
Yes, but also we're looking at over the life of the asset more so than the immediate benefit.
Mr. Mayor.
Was an element in that industry award for that pipeline the fact that so many, such a large number of pipes were needed in order to supply the amount of water required beyond that slip. And those large number of pipes were all installed in a relatively short period of time so that the community had pretty much close to seamless water supply.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
It's really largely due to the responsiveness of the team. Well done.
Councillor Hurley.
Sorry, can I just go back and ask again around our carbon zero work, that what we've put down to invest in now, with the commitments that have been made, will help for the future. How am I trying to ask this? Will help if we have problems in the future, they'll be able to be handled a lot better because of the investment we're making now. Is that fair to say? For the future.
I think maybe the question is, do you build resilience when you do repair?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So it's building stronger resilience in that area, isn't it, in our city? Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question, and it will probably have to go back to mana whenua because it's a statement in the bottom of the Otako letter, and I'm looking for some clarification as to what is actually meant in that statement. And it's in the very last paragraph, and it's a sentence that it finishes as without the detrimental effects of increased rates or the loss of multi-owned Maori land. And the question is around, I'm asking actually what has been stated from Otako, and can we get clarity as to what that might mean? Because if we put 3 water provisions anywhere, it comes with a water bill, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Yes, so I'm not sure what that statement means, and I think it would be quite good for us in clear communication to clarify what that means. So I wonder if someone could go back and clarify exactly what that statement is in terms of what is intended there, because I'm not sure at the moment. Thank you. Any more questions? Well then, I put it. No worries. I move. Well, we're at that point still. I move that the committee notes 3 Waters activity report for the period of 1st of March 2025 to 1st of May 2025. Seconded, Councillor Lucas. Anybody wish to speak? Good. Thank you. I'm just going to then quickly say, Councillor Wiley.
Thank you. I just wanted to also acknowledge the planning for the next 50 years in that document. I think that is a very useful document for the council, and also for anybody looking at putting their hand up for an election. It does cover off a lot of the information that was gone through the 9-year plan, but also I think it's been a very good document in presenting what the future of 3 Waters in the city looks like. I also am heartened to hear about the technology with sludge at Tahuna. And I also look forward to seeing if the road is going to be dug up, Portobello Road is going to be dug up, that there are improved services for the whole of the peninsula are improved relating to that. I did raise that back in 2015 when they were going to build it, and I was shot down at the time. And it's amazing what could have been done when that was through that period. Thank you.
Councillor Houlihan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that I'm delighted we've got this paper just confirming the investment we're making in our city and our infrastructure. There's been talk that we're not investing in certain areas, and it's very clear we are. We're making numerous investments that will benefit many parts of our city, but particularly parts of our city that are suffering at the moment, and nobody likes that. And this happens in every city, unfortunately. There are areas where there's weakened areas in certain pipes, or certain reasons why certain areas, because of the way they lie, or of course, climate issues, is that as a city, we have taken a very proactive, I'd say almost, not the word aggressive, but we've been extremely proactive on our mitigation in those areas around our investment for climate mitigation and to give a strong, resilient future for those areas. And when I say future, that doesn't mean out to 50 to, well, it does, it means 50 to 100 years, but it also means now. Things that we're doing now and investing in aren't just pie in the sky stuff for millions of years to come. They're investments that will benefit people in those areas now. And there's investment there, there's about millions, almost, what if we go on page, for example, in our report on page 64, 60 million has been included in the draft 9-year plan for wet weather flow management, which is currently phased to start in years 4 to 9. This is a strong investment. We've got more investment as well, including in that probably with the Kaikorai Valley are underway. That work there will have a direct benefit to those areas in Surrey Street that are suffering, and obviously we want to do everything we can to help those areas. We're doing work in obviously West Harbour, which is listed, but I just want to make the point that we're not sitting here doing nothing. We have looked at these areas numerous times, and we have made huge investments in our infrastructure, and part of the problem has been we've had years where previous councils have not put the investment into infrastructure, and they've kept the rates very low, which sure is great. I like low rates, everybody here does. However, not investing in the city's infrastructure and not putting some investment in, that means you have to pay a bit more in rates, but it means we've got future pipes and infrastructure that will last our city in years to come. We do not want to be a Wellington where you've got sewage coming out on the street. We want to have strong infrastructure, and our carbon zero investments mean we're strengthening our future resilience. And I can't think of a better way to serve Dunedin. So to talk about representing Dunedin in the future, let's think about carbon zero. Thank you.
Councillor Gary.
Realising I sit between councillors and lunch, I'll make this really short. I just wanted to acknowledge council obviously has made a decision to invest in this area, but I wanted to acknowledge that the team has extraordinary expertise to deliver that work, and I consider we've got a crack team. We know it's nationally held in very high regard, and I'm delighted to hear of the award that was just mentioned. Congratulations.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, similarly I'd like to congratulate the team. The development of the Three Waters Integrated System Plan sets out the course for the next 50 years, and it also exemplifies the actions and activity that is actually happening and has begun, and has been worked on now for some years, which has put us in a very good position to develop and present a water services delivery plan later this year, and be on track to be able to keep our water services in-house, and then to be able to cooperate and collaborate with Christchurch on making our systems as efficient as possible. And so that's exemplified, of course, by their recent industry award, which really speaks to the responsiveness of the team and the difficulties they've had to deal with, in particular with the event of October 2024. And as a result of that event, we now have a very clear plan of the pipes and pumps upgrade, and work on that will be starting, probably at the end of this month, once the new financial year starts and the 9-year plan is ratified. And so we're on a course to get some of the long-standing problems in Dunedin sorted out, but also a whole raft of renewals, upgrades and improvements to our water system. And it's pretty clearly laid out for anyone to be able to see, read and understand easily in that Three Waters integrated system plan. So well done.
Thank you. I won't bother exercising the right of reply. I just want to say to the team, you're doing a great job, and these are always excellent activity reports. So with that, I'll put it. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Just a quick show of hands. Do you want a 30-minute, 40-minute or 45-minute? So 30? What? No, either show your hands. If you want... Okay, I'm going to call 30. No one's moving their arms. 30 minutes? 45? 40? I'm going to call it in the middle, then I'll call it 40 minutes. So 5 to 12. 5 to 1. Okay. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you.
Well, it means 45.
God, it's harder to get. Transport Activity Report for the period ending 30th of April 2025, pages 97 to 101. And we have Ms. Benson, Ms. Smith, and Ms. Dawes is going to just stay there. Okay, cool. Thanks very much. Do you want to comment on the report or just take it as read?
Kia ora. Thank you. Yes, firstly I need to give my apologies for some reporting that I did on the Caversham Tunnel maybe 2 ISCOMs ago. My understanding was that the letters had been sent to the service providers. They have not yet been sent, but they are in train working through with the Transport and Three Waters team, so that piece of work is in train. I'd just gotten slightly ahead of myself in terms of where it was, so my apologies for that.
Thank you. There was a commentary on there, I've just got to find it in the report, saying they were waiting on also legal opinion on what we may or may not have to do, and I was wondering why we'd get legal opinion on what we had to do before we heard back from them.
Thanks, Councillor. That's just a review of any easements we might have in place, just to make sure we're on the right side of the ledger with those.
Cool. My general feeling is if we contact them and ask them, that'll be a good starting point. Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Gary.
Thank you, Ms. Benson. I've got 2 questions. One is around the emergency work update. And I can see you've got a figure there, which is really helpful. How long do you think it'll be till that work is completed that's related to the October weather event last year? And I did make the comment that I know it's a very long it had a very long tail, but I just wondered if you had any idea.
So I think about a third of the sort of long-term sites have been finished through our current maintenance contract. A third are being delivered through a South Roads contract, and the other third of those sites are going out to tender by the end of this week, I believe. So there will be a bit of a tail end, probably another six months or so until it's all wrapped up.
Thank you for that. And will you keep us apprised of the costs as we go through? That's been really helpful. Thank you. And my other question, if I may, Mr. Chair, is page 100, and I won't be surprised to say that item 26, the finalised design and procurement for the remaining sections, the funded sections of the Peninsula Connection project, will commence in July. So how will it proceed from there, Ms. Benson? What's the process?
So the next steps for us are to sit, you know Glenn, who's travelled with us on almost the entirety of the Peninsula Connection. He has actually done some thinking work and some prelim work around the now funded sections of the Peninsula Connection. And so the next step for me is to sit down with Glenn and agree what the procurement strategy is for each of those sections, whether we might be able to get there might be some benefit in going with a design and build for some of the sections as an example, and then start putting together the procurement plan based on that strategy.
And finally, when would you hope, I won't keep you to this, but when would you hope the latest that a contract might be signed for this work? Unknown is a perfectly legitimate response.
I think I probably just need to understand some of the procurement timelines in that first, Councillor Gary. I'm not trying to be difficult in that answer, but I would probably just need to map that out a little bit more.
Thank you, and this is about managing community expectations.
Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, and Mr. Chair, if you'll indulge me a little, I am pushing the envelope on the point about the winter maintenance program, in particular with reference to 3 Mile Hill, which was closed last week, and it's very much a hot topic on the Torre whenever 3 Mile Hill was closed for an extended period of time, and especially when there's nothing noticeable that's been done on it. And I note this morning when I came over at 9:45, there were like 3 vehicles off the road. So I mean, it's part of that winter maintenance program. So maybe you could just update us where things are at.
Sure. So firstly, when it comes to a winter maintenance regime, we do grit 3 Mile Hill. Secondly, we are aware that we do need to do some work at 3 Mile Hill, so we have, I think we had it closed last week where we were doing a lot of signage, updating advisory signs, redoing chevrons. So that's the first step in that journey. The second step is that we will go in there in that, I call it the lower section closer to Mosgild, where we know we have problems. We are going to treat that surface there, but we have to wait until September to treat that surface because we need the weather to be warmer. It's difficult to do it now for reasons because you need the material to set, but like painting your house really. And then we are going to put some temporary speed restrictions just to slow the traffic down a wee bit through those areas until we can get there with that surface treatment.
So I see these already temporary speed restrictions on that bottom snakes, as I call them. Is there any thought to extending the guardrail? You'll know when you're going up on the left, if you look over the side where there's a bit of a car graveyard, where the guardrail probably needs to be extended. Has there been any thought to doing that?
Not at the moment, but I can have a chat with the team and come back about that.
Following up on the speed restrictions, are those under the old temporary speed restriction rules that came out about 2 years ago? Are we still allowed to do those? Set them for 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, so anything that it's not a permanent speed restriction, so if you need to put out a speed restriction for safety purposes, then it's perfectly legal.
Yeah, I presumed it was perfectly legal. I was just wondering where the legality came from. Councillor Gilbert.
Thank you. Good to know we do things legally.
Yeah, excellent, isn't it?
On page 103 on the Gantt chart, thank you for that, by the way. Points 43, specifically 43, around Princes Street. I'm just curious, we've got what looks to be about a year overlap of the planning, overlapping with the actual doing, and I would have thought that, as with all the other plans and do's above, that you'd finish the plan and then you do the do, as opposed to having a year overlap, which kind of sounds like let's just start and figure it out as we go. So can you explain how that works, that overlap of the plan and the do?
I can't. Can I come back to you on that one, because I'm just not all that familiar with Princess Street. In terms of that question, I will say that I know the doing is timed from a capital perspective, because if you noticed in that Gantt chart, we've got 3 reasonably hefty projects in year 1 of the 9-year plan or year 2 of the NLTP. So we have phased the bulk of the construction for the Princess Street to happen in a year outside of that, there to smooth that capital out. But in terms of that crossover, I'll come back to you.
Thank you, because I also found it quite surprising that, again, just eyeballing it roughly, the plan overlaps by about a third of the entire do process, so that it just seemed a bit hinky to me. So yes, please, that'd be great.
Councillor Walker.
Smacked my knee on the table. Gosh, not very wise. 3 questions, and I'll be very careful on the third one for good reason. First question is going back to the Caversham Tunnel, and the saying I hate is in train. So in train, yes, which carriage of the train are the letters in? And part of that other question is, in light of the motion that was carried during the 9-year plan deliberations, how are the Dunedin Trails Trust Group communicated into such things as this? Because that's now a fundamental part of the way they'll need to operate moving forward. So, double question.
Yeah, so our project manager for the Tunnels Trail does attend the trust meetings, so he'll be keeping them updated where we're at with the Caversham Tunnel.
And where are we on the train? Where are the letters? Are they going out today, next week?
Microphone.
I'm not going to put a timeline on that, Councillor Walker, but I will definitely, we're definitely following them up. Yep.
They're in train. Second question is point 18 around the outcome of the SH88 consultation. What SH88 consultation? What is it? What are they consulting on?
So they're consulting on changes to State Highway 88 for the new hospital build. Yeah, so that's the one that Chad and Anya came to talk to council. That's St Andrews Street, Frederick Street. Yeah.
Got you. SH88 always draws me to the Port Chalmers side. Final question. This one I'll be careful on, because the last time you and me discussed this, it's like we set off a nuclear bomb. You know what's going to be about. It's on the cycle counters on point 20. And you provided the link there, and I tried to sign up to the link and couldn't get in because it was going to send the code, and it didn't eventuate. So can you just describe what the counter is and what's the purpose of it and who can access it ultimately?
Sorry about that, Councillor. I'll work with the biz team and see if we can give access to councillors in the meantime. So we would have it live on the website, but with the website migration, it's going to be another 4 to 6 weeks until we can probably get it up on the website. So it will look like this. So we'll have tiles which will give us an average daily count, an average weekly count, an average monthly count, an average financial year count, and the current year to date, previous month, and you'll be able to click on site specific and see the trend in the counting data. Sorry, that's the best I could do, anticipating it might not have worked for you.
Fantastic. Love you all.
Councillor Barker.
Just asked and answered, thank you, because I was interested in the cycle count as well. And will it be publicly available, not just internally?
Yes, it will be publicly available, just like Christchurch and Wellington and other centres.
Councillor Gary.
And I don't want to set off a nuclear bomb either, but I do want to ask the road cone hotline. So presumably people ring in and complain about road cones. I guess that's how it works. And then does the local authority get advised that there's a problem? And how does it work? I mean, do we know if there's any issues?
We're not setting off a nuclear bomb, Councillor Gary, but it has been a topic of conversation for the past 48 or day and a half for me. In theory, WorkSafe should receive the calls about if people have concerns about recidivist use of road cones, and what we've done in the transport team is we've set up a mailbox so that WorkSafe can push those messages through to that mailbox. I will say that it is very difficult to figure out whether road cones are being used correctly at a point in time when you're sitting in an office. So we'll have to be very mindful of that. We are also still complying with the rules around traffic management called COPTM in the city. So yeah, we have, and we also have to be mindful of the fact that we don't want in any way for this to impact the workers on the road.
So that's my next question, because frankly I think it's highly ridiculous, but my concern is for compromising the safety of our people and our contractors' people, and you're the meat and the sandwich basically, but it sounds like you have a good process in place, and we know we're following the rules, but that may not be the public's perception, unfortunately.
So I have had conversations with all of our major contractors this week after the hotline became live, and I wanted to make it really clear that in no way would we ever tolerate this impacting the workforce on the ground.
I don't know if you remember me calling directly to you when I spotted that they hadn't turned off a right-hand turning lane and were moving traffic directly into oncoming traffic. So periodically there are mistakes, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Any more questions? We didn't have to stop for lunch after all. Oh, well then, given there's no more questions, I will move that the committee notes the transport activity report for the period ending 30th of April 2025. Councillor Wither will seconder. Anybody wish to speak to it? Councillor Gary.
I just wanted to take this opportunity, as there is something in the report, paragraph 26, around the Peninsula Connection Fund and sections. I just wanted to let colleagues know that I visited all 3 of the schools that submitted in the long-term plan hearings the following week, and it was absolutely uplifting to see the joy on the face of the children who had sent in submissions around their voices having been heard. And isn't that a great civics lesson for our young children? And in fact, in one remarkable situation, one of the children, his sister, had been one of the submitters 10 years earlier when a group of children submitted. So that is a good news story in terms of process, and thank you to the team, and also thank you to the team for withstanding this initiative around the road cones, and I was very happy to hear that we will not sanction anything that would compromise the safety of our people or our contractors' people.
Any other speakers? I just want to thank staff for their report. As always, it's great to see where the progress is. A couple of ones that are keep coming up, like the Caversham Tunnel, I think will be something that will move along. And I know that's sort of out of left field and not core, but I do think that it'll need to be resolved before the cycleway makes its way there. And it's good to see the Cycle Council become public, maybe get rid of some of the debate around whether the use is up or down on that. So with that, I put it. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 13, naming of 3 public roads and 3 private ways in Wakari, 105 to 112. Ms. Chamberlain, Ms. Benson. If it's all right, could you just take us through exactly how these names are moving, and then we'll take it from there.
Firstly, just a minor correction on the report regarding liaising with emergency services. At the time of writing, we had received confirmation from police and St John that the name was appropriate, and since then we've also received communication from Fire and Emergency to say that the name is appropriate for them, that being Flagstaff Drive as discussed earlier in the meeting.
Cool.
In terms of the names that are proposed, there are 3 public roads which are listed at the top of the report, being Flagstaff Drive, Nailon Street and Daniel Terrace. Each of the names proposed, these being the preferred names from the developer, are compliant with our DCC road naming policy. Following on from that, there are the private ways. As per the policy, DCC places less weight on the appropriateness for private ways than for public roads, but each of these names are compliant as per the road naming policy. So yes, also all of the 3 private way names proposed by the developer are also compliant with our policy. So they are suitable, and what has been put forward by staff for the recommendations. I would like to acknowledge that the developer has done a really good job of doing all of the background research which is appended to this report, and having had liaised with colleagues at Toitu regarding the appropriateness, staff consider the names that the developer has proposed as being acceptable both for the area, and they all follow the same familial theme, which is really valid and which is noted in our policy as being preferred. Yeah, I guess that's all I probably had to say about the 6 roads there. Open to questions.
Oh, Councillor, what's happening? Just so we are just on A1 Flagstaff Drive or Sevilla Drive. We're picking Flagstaff Drive. We have to pick it, right? That's the point I'm getting to. So I assume we're picking Flagstaff Drive for the first part. And it's the same with A3. Is that Daniel Terrace as the preferred to start with by the developer? Okay, then are you happy to move that, Councillor Gilbert? So if we can just put up Daniel. So Flagstaff and then Daniel. Yeah, we might, if you don't mind chucking it up so we're absolutely certain what we've done. Yes. Councillor Gilbert, I will second that. Yeah, we'll go back to questions and then we'll move it. So we haven't moved it yet. Questions?
Mr Chair, tēnā kōrua. Firstly, aroha mai, I've lost concentration, as I do frequently, but just in terms of our last discussion, I don't know whether it was this level or at council about the road naming policy. And if there are changes, does it always, if the policy's changed, does it automatically trigger the significance and engagement policy, or at what level does that happen?
Through the chair, I'll come back to you. I'm not sure it does, but I'll come back to you on that, councillor.
My second and final question is relating to the summary of considerations in terms of impact on Māori. And so there's, while two of them say there's no known impact on Māori, and then there's a third one that talks about the approach supported by Māori partnerships team. Does that mean you, in the course of in the process, in the operations, do you communicate with partnerships, or you just, it's taken as given?
The partnerships team are aware of the road naming policy and process, but unless there are specific considerations noted or the use of a Māori name as part of it, they're not generally consulted on specific roads.
I'll sort of finally, final part of that second question is, in relation to number 13, this one, in terms of there are no known impacts, and I don't know that much, but I know the name is Te Whānau Paki, but if you have the privilege of listening to mana whenua, there's very significant processes that have gone on for the burial of chiefs on Flagstaff. So anyway, I just wanted to check that mana whenua were aware of this stuff. Thank you.
Just following up from Councillor Luffy, so where are we on development of those policies and making sure that we are consulting correctly?
Specifically on the amendment to the road naming policy?
The road naming policy and how we would enact it when someone goes to put a road name up.
So we have a plan to bring an amendment to the road naming policy to council before the end of the year. We are considering what amendments need to be made to this, which can include additional measures around how we consult with mana whenua as part of this process. So at this stage it's planned for before the end of the calendar year, but no further detail.
That'll be then for the new council when it comes in. Good, thank you. Any more questions? Okay, we'll go back to where we were. Councillor Gilbert, you're going to move, and I will second that. Anybody wish to speak to this? Councillor Gary.
I just wanted to acknowledge the developer who, Mr Bretherton, who spoke to us on Zoom today in public forum to outline his family's history with the area, and that was well appreciated. Separate to that, I just want to note that the challenge with road naming and the lack of diversity in our road naming has been going on for a long time, and I know staff have made effort to add names, and we've just heard that the road naming policy will come back to council at some point before the end of the year. But it particularly, I was thinking of the Flagstaff example, that there is significance there for mana whenua, and it just feels like there's opportunities missed. And if we continue to do what we've always done, we'll continue to get what we've always got. So I really look forward to that that policy amendment so we can move forward on this and get some more diversity, because I've certainly been going on about this, and I know others have too, since I think I came on council actually, so nearly 9 years. It is a long time, so I look forward to that. However, that's not to take away from the work that Mr Bretherton did. It was really great to see. And not that I think we need every developer to come and explain their road naming reasons. In fact, I think it's something that should sit with staff personally if we have a robust road naming policy, but that's for later.
Any other speakers? Do you wish to use your right of reply, Councillor?
Only to say, Councillor Gary had put it as succinctly as I could have.
Cool. Okay, with that, I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Number 14, naming a private way in Tomahawk, page 134. Any comments? Any questions? Okay, then I'm happy to just get down to the recommendation. I'm happy to move that we approve the naming of the new private way of 155 Tomahawk Road as Dumford Lane, seconded. Councillor Gilbert. Anybody wish, any questions? No questions. Anybody wish to speak to it? Apparently not, so therefore I put it. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Number 15, naming a private way in Long Beach. Just got to get the thing up. Okay. Any questions on this one? Knowles Lane? Okay, then I'll move that the committee supports. Actually, no. Approves. I have to note that. Approves the naming of the private way 25 Driver Street as Knowles Lane. Seconded Councillor Walker. Anybody wish to speak? Nope. Therefore, I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And that brings us to the last item, which is a notice of motion that I've put up. If we could just have that up, it'd be great, thanks. Councillor Gilbert has indicated that he's willing to second it. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions of the mover? I think you have it of me at that point.
I have a question. Does this include looking at traffic management?
No, this was entirely, my intention here was basically green management. So green and vegetation management primarily start with. I think that's, actually, we would just make sure that everybody's got it on the same page here. That's more or less what your interpretation is too, Mr McLean.
Thank you, Mr Chair. We could probably, although it's...
Well, it won't matter if the report's wider than...
No, we could be, because it says including but not limited to green spaces and roading related infrastructure provision, so it's quite broad.
Given that it's the report to start the activity, would you want that traffic management be considered in the report?
I would have thought that was a sitter of anything is probably the most obvious one to look at as an in-house or a different delivery option, because I know it's very expensive.
Do you feel I'm happy to modify? I don't know if you can modify notice of motion.
You don't need to modify it, I think, just so long as the stuff clear.
Councillor Walker.
Again, I don't think anything needs amended here, but in the report it would, because what my only concern here is we need to ascertain currently how contractors are held to account. So I want the report to capture that, because I think therein lies part of the reason we're going here. So we need to have some understanding of that, but I don't think you need to change the motion.
Right, and we also have Christchurch City's experience in some of these to look at as we go through with this. Any other questions? Councillor Houlihan.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'm just wondering, so if I assume at the moment there's contracts in place, so if that's the case, are you proposing this would take place when those contracts end, or are you wanting the report to look at the implications of breaking that to start sooner?
given it's a report, I would assume that the report would come back and then tell us the context of where we are at the moment relative to those contracts and the consequences of either continuing them or finishing them early.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Then I will move it now. Seconded Councillor Gilbert. Does anybody wish to speak to it? Councillor Barker. I'll wait for my right of reply, to be honest. I actually find that more efficient.
Fair enough. I remember sending through information on this back on Wednesday, October the 2nd, 2024, seeing that Christchurch were moving their services back in-house. So that was a really useful report. I'm happy to share it. It was made public, which is useful. But a lot of when we went and visited them in April, they were actually saying that it worked really well for them. They had faster response services to their customer requests. They're working with their community boards, and we heard our community boards come and talk to us during the LTP process, wanting to work with local contractors in the areas because they know the areas better, the better community partnerships, the workforce training, the cost of the service as well, they felt was better. But it was actually, I guess, nice to see their councillors smile and say that actually they were getting a lot better customer service and a lot better feedback from their community. And I think that's one of the things that counts. We love to save money, and we love it when our community are much happier with our responsiveness. So I think it's really good for us to take the opportunity to look at how we do deliver these services.
Councillor Gilbert.
Thank you. On much the same lines as Councillor Barker, I found that meeting enjoyable and rewarding in for many parts of the conversation, but this was the one that really stuck out to me, was we as in they, Christchurch has saved money. The customer satisfaction or resident satisfaction has gone up significantly, as well as saving money, the efficiency, everything. There was just sort of this gold buff on the outside. I realised that not all things gilded and gold are solid, but there was just so much positivity in the room about having made that change. We're not looking at reinventing wheels, we're looking at in some ways learning from somebody who has already gone down this road. So and we've also around this table, just in my tenure, we have spoken loosely about this sort of thing for quite some time. So to be able to actually start the investigation proper is the reason I wanted to second.
Councillor Houlihan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for this motion. I don't want our contractors to feel, all like serious concern and create a bit of major disruption. However, we have been receiving numerous complaints, particularly around vegetation cutting around our streets, and some of that could be because budgets were cut around that, but it created a huge furore in the public arena where there's something going on there, where people were very unhappy about the service. I get numerous emails about it, and I'm sure many of us around the table do as well. So what I think this hopefully will do is put our contractors on a notice that, we would like a better job. And to review this, I think, is an acceptable thing. However, people's livelihoods and jobs are at risk, or not at risk, but, are obviously involved in this. So we have to be very careful the way we deal with this. But I think it's worth looking at. Thank you.
Councillor Lucas. Oh, I've gone back to my question set. Councillor Walker.
Thought I was next. Anyway, just some general thoughts here. I guess in political terms, I'm guessing in the past at some points the liberal boffins thought it was a great idea to save money by contracting everything out, and of course history shows us that's often not the case, particularly in terms of efficiency. And the reason I asked about, when we review this, to have the inclusion of how we hold our contractors to account, I think is a really important part of that. And it's not an attack on the contractors. The weakness probably potentially may emanate from our side. And call me naive, and I presume we're all the same here, but when I get a contractor to build my kitchen, and I pay them a wee bit up front and a tiny bit in the middle, but there's a large chunk left at the end. I've never in my time ever paid that final chunk of money out until I've looked around my kitchen to make sure the cupboards are in place and they work and the oven opens and everything is hunky-dory. Then, in discussion with my wife, we then used to sign a cheque and hand it over. And I get a sense somewhere, probably across the world, that's a system that doesn't quite work anymore. And or there may be some part of the system that just doesn't make sure that what you're paying for, you get. And this is important to be reviewed, because I am a great fan of, I was trying to think of a catchy saying, but I guess what gets measured gets done ultimately, and I think this is a timely time to do this on behalf of our ratepayers in a time when we're asking them to pay more money for work to be done.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, there's a lot of ebb and flow of considerations and ideas about how work is best done for anyone actually doing any kind of job. And there's a balance to be struck between specialists and generalists, between contractors who have the ability to do specialised jobs and generalists who can essentially look at the overview of the job and do most of the basic things and keep everything tidy and working together and integrated, and being able to make sure that everything else flows, and to coordinate all those specialists who are brought in for different elements. So I don't think this initiative would ever preclude the need of council to have specialists in a lot of different areas, but it will mean that we have the ability to do general work, and to do general work across a range of different activities, whereas now we might have to use individual contractors. So a particular one person might go to a particular small area and do the job of 2 or 3 different contractors that might have been required in the past, but they'll be able to get that job done and deal with the whole thing. And so, that will add efficiency and also responsiveness to whatever community happens to be working in. And I suppose this is what led on to the second part of the item, where you're talking about sending someone to Middlemarch and you have to send 3 contractors to get a job done, whereas you could send one person and he could do the whole thing. So it is helpful for council to have a range of generalists as part of the team that can go out and do a range of general jobs. And how big or small that team might be depends on need and how it grows and develops. But it won't stop the need for contractors to do that specialist work, who've got specialist equipment, large scale or tiny scale, whatever it might be. So this is about striking a balance between the two.
Any more speakers? Councillor Wiley.
Yeah, I'm going to support this. Really, when Mr. Barry Williams from the Strathtyre Community Board came and spoke to us, it really sort of made a key point for me, was the fact that actually when and this is what I look at with B especially, to send people to do vegetation control always from Dunedin or even Mosgiel to go up there to do it, there is some good people in those communities that, if given the ability, can actually deliver, and they're actually also more in tune to what needs doing for the benefits. So it's not that always that 6 or 8 week rotational cut that that the contract states, but it's about delivering more, and ideally from the same amount of money, but also it also supports some of these little businesses in the rural community, and I really look forward to seeing. And again, it's asking for a report, it's requesting a report. It's not about making decisions. So I look forward to seeing what comes back in it, and actually how we can show some more love to some of the outlying areas.
Any other speakers? Okay, I'm going to exercise my right of reply. I want to start out by, this is not a comment on Whitestone or Delta's delivery programs, and the contractors are not on notice. This is actually just a mechanism of looking at whether or not this could be delivered in another way and whether we'll get advantages or disadvantages from that delivery system. Obviously jobs are affected, but I'll try to recount something that I can't remember Athel's last name, but he was the guy mowing the lawn, he's the guy who mows Logan Park. And I was moving a football team for him one day as he was mowing along, and we had a quick chat, and he recognised me, so we chatted backwards and forwards. And I said, what's it like working for Delta? And he said, the only thing that's really changed is the logo on my shirt. And I think this is a relevant point, that for some of the people, I don't think this will be a huge change for them, whether it's an in-house or out-of-house delivery system, and I don't want to cause disruption on those who are employed currently at the moment. But it gets to something that I've seen a lot as attached to the Waikowhai Coast Community Board. The part B of this is a very important part for those rural communities, and that is that they feel that there are people in that community who can deliver for the council as a contractor, fully certified in health and safety and all other such things. But because they live in the community, they will do the job slightly differently than anybody else will. You'll know that they will finish that last 5 metres, even if the GIS says that they should stop right there. They will finish it, and they will probably have a local understanding of where and when you do the mowing. So if the contracts are more around keep it under control as opposed to mow it every 4 weeks, whatever, I think you'll get better outcomes, generally speaking. The response upon visiting the Christchurch City Councillors was exactly that. They all said universally that it had rolled out very efficiently. It appeared to be a cheaper delivery program, but most importantly, the feedback from the public was an enormous improvement in outcomes. So I think we're asking for a report. We're not predetermining the outcome. And I look forward to see what that report brings. And the only reason I brought this notice of motion up is to make sure we're actually getting this on motion. And if it had not been captured in this notice of motion, the next one I was going to do, if I am here at the next election and someone has put me back in this seat, would have been to go after the traffic management and see what we can do about that as well. So if it gets captured in this as well, then I think that's a great additional thing to catch in it. So with that, I will put it. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And that is the end of the last infrastructure meeting of the triennium. Oh, sorry, you're right. I've got to go into confidential. That's the last part of the public, you'll see. I moved that. Get past my notice of motion. Okay, I moved that the committee, pursuant to the provisions of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, exclude the public from the following part of the proceedings of this meeting and for the reasons outlined in the agenda. Seconded to Councillor Mayhem. All those in favour? Aye.